hoping you'd forget about
No,
If I get you one, now wait, if I get you one, I gotta get him one. And then I gotta get Chris one.
Hey, I'm gonna talk to Cooney if I have to, Mr. Cooney, and he'll order you to get me one.
What am I, a cat herder?
That'll work.
Welcome to the regular meeting of the Grand Traverse County Commission. Wednesday, February 24th. You raise for the invocation, please.
Our Heavenly Father, please give us the guidance and wisdom as we go through the business of the county today, so we will make the best decisions on behalf of our residents. We also want to pray for one of our residents, Dr. Keith Kramer, and his family. Dr. Kramer recently lost his father, Ted Kramer, a longtime community leader of Traverse City, and was also had retired, but was the FBI agent assigned to the Traverse City office for many years. We pray for him and his family. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Fleece?
Present.
Max Bauer? Here. Richardson?
Here.
Stepka?
Here.
Friend? Here. Inman?
Here.
Cooper?
Here.
Chairman Thomas?
Here. Would you read the rules for public comment, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. 1. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. 2. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Who first? Anybody want to speak? State your name before you start.
Good evening, Mark Breederland, Acting Grand Traverse County MSU Extension Director, 520 West Front Street. Good evening, and I just wanted to very briefly give a quick status on the MSU Extension budget since the governor's proposed executive budget just came out on February 11th. And I'm sure that the budget actually has a very long ways to go, but I am very happy to report that the MSU Extension and the Ag Experiment Station are both being treated the same as the rest of higher education in the proposed budget, and we are not facing a disproportionate cut. So the funding for the proposed 2010-2011 would be 0% from what was actually enacted last year, and that's actually the best starting point that we could have asked for. And just contrast that with a few years ago when the governor's proposed budget actually cut funding to higher education just by a few percent, but then she proposed 100% elimination of extension, I think it was 2004. So we're very thankful to the governor's office for this change and for the strong support of this county and the legislature. And reorganization is still happening within MSU Extension, but I'm very confident the Grand Traverse office will continue to be a strong hub through this transition and will continue to deliver some excellent programs for the citizens of the county. So we'll also be doing a retirement get-together sometime. We're just trying to plan this for Jim Wiesing, Jenny Gerard, and Kay Roush from our office. All of these people had close to 20 years, and one of them well above 20 years in service here in this area. And so we'll keep you posted. It'll probably be sometime in April. So thank you very much for your time and for your support.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Anyone else?
Hello, I came to introduce myself. I'm Meta Lansdale, and I'm the new director of the Traverse Area District Library. Been on board since November 1st, and I've met Dennis, but I hope to get around to meet each of you. I've met Larry, I think. He came to one of our board meetings. And mainly, I just wanted to introduce myself and bring greetings from the Traverse Area District Library Board. We have recently made a change you might be hearing about to change in the circulation policies, extending the loan period, abolishing all the rental fees, and hopefully opening up the collection a little more to higher circulation and access for more people. I know that's very boring, circulation policies. But the other thing that I don't think is boring is that the board authorized me recently to conduct a community survey. And one of my marching orders when I was hired was that the library board wanted me to investigate ways that the library can serve people outside the city of Traverse City much better than they are now. So extending services out into the county. So the big question is how to do that on our current income, and probably not as well as people would like us to do. But so the starting point is to conduct a survey. We've hired a consultant who has much experience in this and actually did work on the Woodmere building back before it was built. And we will be surveying the entire community, looking at traffic patterns, looking at how people utilize the library, looking at where they live and their distances from the current 6 facilities that the library has, and then making some recommendations about how best to serve them, whether facilities need to be additional facilities or upgraded facilities or whatever. So I bring that to your attention. We will be asking for your input. You are key influential members of the community. Part of that survey will be we'll be doing 2 or 3 community forums and ask people to come and speak with each other and with us and the consultants about their views on library service in their neighborhoods. So that's my pitch, and I look forward to working with all of you soon.
Thank you, Meta.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Tom Mayer. I live in Traverse City, and Christine Maxbauer is my representative for the district that I live in. Also, I have been on the ballot in the past for county commissioner, so that might have something to do with what I'm going to say. But one of the things I noticed when I look at one of the old ballots is how many positions go uncontested. And since this is an election year, some of you have had the benefit of running uncontested in the past. Most of the administrative jobs in the county run uncontested, and I find it really discouraging that is what our community, the community response to an election is not to run against the person who has the job, the incumbent. And one of the things that you're going to consider tonight also concerns me, because even though it goes against what I just checked in the Record Eagle before I came over, I don't know why you would want to give away some of your benefits. If you tallied up all the hours that you work, you're probably getting paid some kind of a minimum wage or perhaps a living wage for what you do, and you're all experts at what you do. You all do a good job. And I don't know why you'd want to give away something that is part of your compensation package, whether it's salary or per diem or health benefits. And if you're like me, and I know you don't have my situation, but if you were me, you would have to go through life without insurance, because I'm unemployed. I don't have health insurance. My wife is uninsurable, and if I became a commissioner in the future, I would want the benefit of some insurance. I don't understand why you'd want to give it away. I can see in the Record Eagle there's a lot of people that think you should give it away, but I campaigned heartily in the last year for single-payer universal health care. I petitioned. I worked with legislators in Washington to try to get that passed, and I think that is the way to go. If you listen to today's news, some people who are insured in different parts of the United States, if they're personally insured and not through a company that they work for or a government, Their rates are going up by 20 to 30%. So the fight should be to insure everyone, not to give away benefits. That's where the fight should be. And you should all be thinking about how you're going to afford health care for the rest of your life and not give it away. I think it's just the wrong attitude. And I'm sure the public thinks that you're overpaid and overcompensated, but they probably don't even know how much you actually make and how little it is. So if you were a major corporation and you were making over $1 million a year as a director of a board, I can understand that that would seem high. And if I were elected, I would strip corporate rights as far as some of those things go, because I think people are overpaid, and I think they do get disproportionate compensation. But if you're really serious about giving away your benefits, I suggest you give it to people and don't give it back to the county. Instead, you give it to the Traverse Health Clinic. I went over there today. I know they need money. People go there who don't have insurance. You're fortunate you have insurance, but the point is that there's so many people that don't, and so many people that can't afford it, so many people unemployed who are well-educated and did a great job for their employers. They have to give up their health insurance after 18 months at COBRA, and they're lucky if they get that, I guess. But once they become paying for their insurance on their own, they could easily face rate increases of 20 to 30% per year, as I just said. So if you're really serious about giving away your benefits, I suggest you give it to somebody who deserves it. And this organization, Traverse Health Clinic, can use your money if you don't want it. There's people going in there every day who don't have coverage. And that's why they go to the Traverse Health Clinic. That's what I would suggest.
Tom, one more here.
And I'd suggest people to run. This is an election year.
Thank you.
It's time to consider running for an elected office. If people don't agree with this board and the way it operates, I suggest you run. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We'll close public comment. Approve the agenda.
Support.
Been moved and supported.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I did have one issue that I would ask the board if they would consider. This came this afternoon at 5 o'clock, actually. Evidently, there was a meeting with our equalization director and the townships of Blair, East Bay, and Garfield to talk about the Cherryland Electric Tax Tribunal appeal. And they have asked you to consider a small contribution towards filing the filing fee for the appeals, and they asked if I would ask you if you could add that to the agenda tonight to talk about.
Is this a new appeal, or is this the one that
It's the existing one.
it's been in for a couple of years now?
Yes, yeah.
Is this under your section then?
If the board would agree, I would ask you to add that so we could talk about it, because they have to be filed by Tuesday. That's the only reason.
I'm willing to amend my
Why don't we?
motion.
Okay, why don't we put it at the end of your,
That'd be fine. Number 7 in my section.
number 7, yeah.
One quick question, Dennis, for you. Your number 3 under your administrator's report, isn't that under the consent agenda, kind of?
Well, Commissioner, you have to, whenever there's a conflict like this, there have to be 2 separate motions. There has to be a motion to approve the contract, and there has to be a separate motion to acknowledge the conflict. So that's why it's in 2 places. I suppose you could do it all under the same one, but you do have to make 2 separate motions.
Yeah, because I thought the motion was the same, but okay.
But he's got to be able to abstain. He wouldn't want to abstain on the whole consent calendar. Okay, motion to approve the agenda. All right, we got it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carried.
All righty.
Consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission staff or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file. Number 1, correspondence regarding proposed road millage ballot language, dated January 18, 2010. Number 2, correspondence regarding Risk Watch training, dated January 29, 2010. Number 3, correspondence from National Fire Protection Association, dated January 29, 2010. Number 4, resolution supporting Legislative Commission on Statutory Mandates recommendations in their December report, Allegan and Berrien County. Number 5, resolution GEMS Election Management Systems, Charlevoix County. Number 6, Ways and Means Committee minutes of February 17, 2010. Number 7, resolutions urging implementation of the state substance abuse treatment and prevention allocation formula, Benzie Lake and Mecosta counties. Number 8, Public Health and Safety Committee minutes of February 3, 2010. Number 9, Resource Management and Administration Committee minutes of February 10, 2010. Number 10, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority minutes of December 3, 2009. Number 11, Board of Public Works minutes of December 14, 2009. Number 12, Northwestern Regional Airport Commission minutes of December 14, 2009. Number 13, Road Commission minutes of December 16, 2009. Number 14, Conservation Resource Alliance minutes of December 17, 2009. Number 15, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority minutes of December 30, 2009. Number 16, Resource Recovery Council minutes of January 7, 2010. Number 17, G5 Subcommittee minutes of January 11, 2010. Number 18, Commission on Aging Senior Center Ad Hoc minutes of January 11, 2010. Number 19, Sewer and Water Committee minutes of January 14, 2010. Number 20, Traverse Area District Library minutes of January 14, 2010. Number 21, Commission on Aging Executive Committee minutes of January 21, 2010. Number 22, Commission on Aging Friends of the Commission on Aging millage minutes of January 21, 2010. Number 23, Special Sewer and Water Committee minutes of January 25, 2010. Referrals, none. Approvals. Number 24, Board of Commissioners regular minutes of January 27, 2010. Public Health and Safety Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. Number 25, licensing of pawnbrokers, secondhand dealers and junk dealers, and precious metal and gem dealers. Number 26, Sheriff's Office vehicle purchase. Number 27, adoption of risk-based evaluation schedule. Number 28, home chore equipment maintenance and repair. Number 29, Commission on Aging donations. Resource Management and Administration Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. Number 30, approval of capital improvement policy. Number 31, classification plan amendment. Number 32, appointment to Land Bank Authority. Number 33, acceptance of proposal with Fiddler Technologies. Number 34, liability coverage for Winter Wonderfest Snowball Softball Tournament. Number 35, Siegel Study Ad Hoc Committee. Number 36, Child Care Fund request. Number 37, Tribal Grant Application Process and Calendar. Number 38, Commissioner Compensation for 2011-2012. Ways and Means Committee recommends approval of the following resolutions. Number 39, approval of purchase of Internet web filtering security appliance. Number 40, approval to purchase storage expansion and server memory. Number 41, Land Information Access Association contract renewal. Number 42, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Agreement. Number 43, budget adjustments. Number 44, acceptance of grant funding by GIS. Number 45, amendment to avigation easement. Number 46, 2010 borrowing resolution, 2009 delinquent taxes. Number 47, facilities fixed price contract for natural gas usage. Number 48, proposed delinquent tax revolving fund earnings distribution policy. Number 49, unreserved fund balance policy. Number 50, Child and Family Services grant application. Number 51, MERS retirement hybrid plan analysis.
That is the longest consent calendar I've ever seen.
That's because we're all getting older.
But, is there anybody in the public who would like anything removed from the consent calendar?
No, just a drink of water.
She's the only one up here that can read, that's why she's there.
Are you going to discuss 38, the compensation?
Yeah, I'm gonna have it pulled.
Yes. Correct answer is yes. Is anybody else? Board?
Board first.
28 and 38.
Huh? 28? 28?
Yeah, 28 and 38.
And 26 and 51,
Which ones, Ron?
26 and 51. And I had a question about 6, 8, and 9.
Let's be careful, it won't be the longest one of those.
I know. Shouldn't 6, 8, and 9 all be draft minutes because those minutes haven't been approved yet?
You know, I have a note on that, Commissioner. I wanted to bring it up to the Commissioner. Part of the reasons this is so long is we have a lot of draft minutes that we're actually having here. And when it was committee meetings and only 4 commissioners sat on a committee, it kind of made sense to get those minutes on the board agenda so that the other commissioners would see the minutes. But since you're now a committee of the whole and all 9 of you are there, what we're doing is we're having a public health and safety meeting. We're putting those minutes on here, and then we're approving them at the next public health and safety meeting. And I think we don't need to I don't think we need to put them on here, but it's the county board's decision. I think we could cut this back some.
Well, I don't know if they need to be here or not, but in any case, they aren't approved minutes yet, so they're draft minutes.
Exactly, and I guess part of what I was thinking about was, if we have draft minutes on the agenda, even if they say draft, are we potentially causing some confusion among people that might be looking at them and not realizing that
But we're
they're...
not approving these, we're receiving and filing.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand that, but they're not approved minutes that you're receiving
Right.
and filing.
I just-
And my guess is next month, then you're going to have the approved ones to receive and file.
We don't really need them in here because
I don't
we do
think
get
so.
an email copy of them. If we need to
Right.
refer to something, we have that.
We don't have to decide it, but I'm just suggesting, we might want to think about that. That could cut this down
So
significantly.
the only purpose of having them there, it does help the general public who may not have been at the meeting to know what transpired at the meeting.
That's if they have the agenda.
Because we are acting on stuff that happened at those meetings tonight. They just need to be clarified that it's a
okay.
receive and file of draft minutes because the minutes have not been approved yet.
All right, we'll make that change.
That whole, down to number 23 is all just receive and file anyway. We're not taking action on it.
I understand that, but
Okay.
but they're not formal minutes yet because they haven't been approved.
Oh, well,
That's all.
What do we have removed so far?
26, 28, 38, and 51.
35 and 49?
So much for your short minutes.
35 and 49, huh? Okay, so there goes...
Did she say 41 or 49?
35 and 49.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Did you say 45?
No, 49,
35.
35 and 49.
Just as a note, 45, you want to explain?
Yeah, I talked with, Chuck Judson called me today, and Steve Cassens from the airport is here in the audience. The agreement is identical, with the exception that Chuck is saying, as he's looked at it more closely, the agreement that we sign should be a separate one with the identical language for Grand Traverse County, and then he will take a separate one, identical, for Leelanau County to sign. So what he's suggesting is, I think you can approve it, but that it would be contingent on the attorney's review and final approval, and then the chairman would be authorized to sign.
Okay, is everybody happy with what we've pulled?
44, too.
44?
44.
Who's doing that?
I am.
The GIS?
Yes.
Wow.
I thought it was supposed to say
And so now it's not the longest one I've ever had.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item number 26, 28, 35, 38, 44, 49, and 51.
Second.
Support?
Been moved and supported. I think I heard Wheelock before I heard. A roll call vote.
Commissioner Fleece,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Stepka,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Hooper,
Yes.
Wheelock. Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Now we're down to the administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is asking you to pass a resolution ratifying the Teamsters Local 214 Sergeant's Bargaining Unit. The two main points of this agreement, besides the same language changes that we've had with other groups, is this would provide a 3% raise through January 1st of 2010, and we were successful in getting the language in exchange for that, as you directed, on workers' compensation, limiting that to 18 months. That was a very important change for the county. So with those two changes, everything else is reflected similar to the other contracts that we have.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve the negotiated agreement with the Sergeant's Bargaining Unit, Teamsters Local 214.
Support. Been moved and supported. Discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Item number 2, Mr. Chairman, is a Technical Professional and Office Workers Association of Michigan agreement for the Central Records Unit. This is a labor contract completion. This mirrors what we've done with other units. 2009 raise of 1.5, 2010 raise of 1.5, and those are the only major changes in this agreement. And I'd recommend approval.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the Technical Professional and Office Workers Association of Michigan negotiated contract for the Central Records Division.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Discussion?
Dennis, I just had a question.
Yes, sir.
The clause about if, 1.5% is given out, a raise greater than 1.5% is given to any non-Act 312. How many non-Act 312 bargaining units do we have besides this one?
I'm going to say 9 or 10.
Okay, and the Act 312, those are the law enforcement?
That's correct.
Thank you.
This is language that is similar to the other contracts you've approved.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Item number 3 is the item I spoke of earlier. It's the conflict of interest acknowledgement for Commissioner Fleece on the maintenance contract for the Commission on Aging. And in talking to Bob just now, this is just a matter of you acknowledging in this item the conflict exists. And Bob, did you want to vote on that?
No.
Okay, so this is acknowledging the conflict. Okay?
Yep.
The next item is you had requested me to work with the sheriff in negotiating an architectural services contract with AAI. This would be for the design and the budget for the storage building. This is being paid for by ICE funds that the sheriff has agreed to use for this purpose. We met with AAI. We went over the scope of work and the details of the agreement. We clarified who would have what responsibility and what role Danny Brown from our facilities and Bruce Ramai from our building code department would play. The contract has been reviewed, I think, by civil counsel as well, has it not, Bob? Yes. And we think it's in order, and we would recommend approval.
Motion to approve?
Support. Moved and supported. Discussion? Ross?
A couple things, Dennis, on page 14 of the contract, under additional services, there's a whole list of who's responsible, and then section 4.1.23, extensive environmentally responsible design has not provided. Is there going to be any kind of attempt to do environmentally responsible design?
No, not for a brick building. We're not going to try to meet LEED certification or anything like that.
Well, I mean, I understand you're not trying to meet lead certification, which is a separate item, but.
Okay.
I mean, are there ways that the architect can be encouraged to design it in such a way as to at least be somewhat green?
Oh, we plan on doing that in the actual design commissioner, but there's no separate charge for doing that. That's just going to be part of the design. Danny Brown has already been talking.
Oh, I see, okay, it's a question of the additional services.
Yes.
All right. And the other question is, on page 25, under Exhibit A, it says that $400,000 to $500,000 will not fund the program. Down there in the very last paragraph on the page. Has there been any general estimate of how much this building's going to cost?
No, well, that is the estimate that was provided by the sheriff based on just some costs that he saw when he looked at all those buildings that he brought to you and talked to you about. But no, part of this will be designing the actual budget cost and the estimate before we go out on bids.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Carried.
7,000 square feet should be available.
The next item, which is on page 31, this is something that our new HR director is doing, Jen Seaman. We're going to modify it. This is her first shot at it, and typically what this will be is this will be under consent calendar. But we're going to try to start providing you with some relevant data about our employee populations. One of the things we're going to add to this is the average age of employees, number of people that leave employment, how many we hire in a year. So it's really just to give you kind of a snapshot of what our employee population looks like. And I wanted to put it on this agenda just so that I could point out that you'll be seeing this regularly now in your consent calendar. And if you look it over and you have other information that you feel would be relevant or useful to you as commissioners, please let us know and we'll modify the page to meet your needs.
A lot of people here have been a while.
Any questions? Dean will handle the next item.
I've provided the claim summary for the month of February. The STEPCA and APRIA claims are identified at $5,281.50. Total claims for the month, including the payroll, $7,158,520.11. One comment on the February 19th, the $2 million figure includes $1 million, an investment that was purchased by the treasurer, and then also $800,000 to Priority Health for health coverage for the month. That's a large item within those immediate payment claims, and I thought I should explain what's in that total.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the total claims of $7,158,520.11.
Is there support?
Support.
Been moved and supported
Do it, please.
by roll call vote.
Commissioner Max Bauer,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Stepka,
Yes.
Yes.
I think I confused him, I'm sorry.
Check your name tag. I don't believe you're Mr. Stepka. Sit there and be quiet.
I'll vote for
Friend?
you, Larry.
Yes.
Inman,
I think you have to say it.
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Please,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Gonna have to bring my ball bat. I'm
Almost
telling you.
forgot my name.
Conflict? Or the
Yes.
Priya?
Okay, can we have a motion to approve the step?
It's not a conflict.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve STEPCA PRIA claims in the amount of $5,281.50.
Support.
Moved, supported. By roll call vote.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
Stepka abstains. Friend,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Please,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Thomas.
Which step is?
Yeah, I was waiting to see if that one would abstain too. Okay, the next item is the one that I added, and I just passed this out to you. Again, I apologize, just received this afternoon. I'm going to read it. Tom Greer, attorney for the Cherryland appeal, and all the interested townships met today regarding the Cherryland Electric appeal. Supervisors were at the meeting from Blair, East Bay, and Garfield Townships. Assessors were there from the other units. As you may recall, this case involves 23 units and 3 counties. If any units are going to continue, it would require a $375 filing fee per case. I suggested that, this is from Lori Spencer, I suggested that perhaps the county would pay the $375 filing fee and the townships would cover the attorney's expenses for Grand Traverse County only. We would only file on the major value cases, so it would cost the county $1,875. If we do not appeal the cost to the county, if we don't appeal this, the cost would be $34,510 in lost tax revenue, which would have to be refunded to Cherryland. Michigan Townships Association has agreed to file the amicus brief. This is a significant case for the county. A decision must be made by next Tuesday, so there's little time to wait until the next meeting of the board. The townships are willing to continue only if the board commits to paying the filing fees. And then she asked me how I'd like to proceed. So I brought this to your attention. Let me just say that we've been having really good meetings with the township, and I wish this could have waited until we had some more meetings. In fact, I met with Chuck Korn yesterday to talk about this more, and as soon as Wayne Clatter gets back in town, I will be setting up a meeting with the township, with township supervisors from Acme, East Bay, Blair, Garfield, and County Commissioners Stepka and I believe Richardson will be invited as well to meet and talk about what kind of things mutually we could do on some of these larger issues. I guess I would just summarize and say that I don't think that the townships are going to be looking for a great deal of help. And, you know, the discussions may center more around providing some appraiser support and things like that. It seems like the townships are willing to take on the attorney costs. This particular case, though, is one that counties in this area and local units of government have agreed to work on together, and they've been working on it for some time. And you know, while I think in a sense it's premature because we've just started discussions with them, I really think if the county board is willing to spend $1,875 is a show of good faith, you know, that the county wants to help these things go forward. I think it would help in our discussions with the townships about, you know, mutually working on these things together. I guess I'm taking this at Lori's word. I don't know. I haven't talked to the supervisors to know that they won't file this if we don't spend the $1,800. That seems like not a lot of money compared to what they're going to have to spend in legal fees. It's very little.
Seems like a good sentence to put at the end of the paragraph, though.
Pardon?
Seems like a good sentence to put at the end of the paragraph.
Yeah, of course. But I guess I would say for that much money and to show the county's willingness to partner in this, or at least openness to partner in this, the county stands, if they drop these, to lose $34,510 a year. That's quite a bit of money, and to my way of thinking, an $1,800 investment is not very significant for those kinds of revenues. So my recommendation would be, with the information that you have, that's the information I have, that we agree to spend the $1,875 and file the fees.
I would support spending the $1,875, but again, my concern is it's a little bit premature.
Right.
I don't mind show of good faith. I'm just hoping that we're not opening any floodgates either.
Well, I think, to address that concern, Commissioner, if you're inclined to do something like this, my suggestion would be to say you're going to do this, but this will be the only involvement of the county until we've able to negotiate some agreement with the local units of government on how this could be cost shared. That would get you away from that, opening that door. It's a one-time thing. And, yeah, I mean, we wouldn't stop another township or somebody else from coming to us, clearly, but I think to build this bridge and this relationship with the townships and the city is a positive thing to do, and I think if we're going to address these things in the long run and not be faced with constant stipulations, we're going to have to take some action. That's just my recommendation, but I respect whatever the board decides to do.
Larry?
I guess at first blush, I felt the same as Commissioner Friend, that it was premature to move forward with, I guess what I would see as an ongoing commitment, which I don't have a problem being a partner and having some level of commitment. But, I thought the game plan was we were going to have the townships represented, the county, and all the taxing units, and we were going to come up with a plan together about how we were going to attack this thing, and we were all going to, hopefully, at the end, come to an agreement that we were going to share something. And and then all of a sudden, we've got hit with this request, because probably everyone got excited that they heard that the county wants to get involved, all of a sudden they're asking us for money already. And, so if we move forward with this thing, I'm just telling you that you can expect the rest of the townships to come waltzing in here and saying, I've paid all these filing fees for all these cases I've got pending, and I need your help. If you share the expense with them, I'd like to have you share the expense with us. I mean, I could just see that happening. If I was a township supervisor, that's what I would be doing. So, as long as everybody knows that if we move forward with this thing tonight, there's probably an expectation that we're probably going to be asked for not only the ones that have filed and waiting for an answer, but, the ones that plan on filing here in the very near future. And meanwhile, we haven't gotten to the local units, we haven't gotten to the taxing agencies, we haven't come to some mutual agreement about how everyone's going to share in this process we're going to have. So, I mean, I can go both ways. I'm going to have a problem with this 1,800. I'm just saying, we're just kind of we're taking a step here, and that's all I'm going to say.
I guess maybe I'm backwards, but I was hoping to make the motion in a second so as that we could have a discussion on the issue. But, and I guess that's the point I would make is first I'd like to make the motion that we approve this $1,875 and get a second, and then we can have the discussion that's appropriate.
Okay.
We have a motion made and seconded. I think the key point to me is the fact that, yes, this ongoing discussion has to continue without a question. But when we're talking about these major utilities, they are affecting a drastic impact on all of our local government or local entities. I don't believe that, at least from my perspective, Grand Traverse County is going to support Long Lake Township for XY developer that has 6 lots that he can't sell in a subdivision, so he's going to appeal all the tax tribunals, or appeal those tax tribunals. I don't see that, but I do see the county being an active participant in the appeal process for these major utilities that are effective in all of the townships, or most all of the townships, whether it be Cherryland Electric, Consumers Power, SBT, AT&T. All of these utilities are really coming down hard the last couple of years about appealing all of their assessments. And the really strange part about it is, and Dick and I have talked about it historically, the numbers that they get assessed are the numbers that they provide the tax assessor of what the value of the property is in their communities. This isn't where the assessor isn't going out and saying, okay, you've got so many substations, that substation's worth X number of dollars, you have so many miles of wire, it's worth that. They are using solely the numbers that are provided by these utilities by which to assess the value. So but these major utilities are becoming a big part of what the Michigan Tax Tribunal is doing in these current times. And I believe that in order to have a chance at beating these utilities based on an appeal process, it's going to take a unified front of the county, the townships, and I would hope somewhere along the way the other taxing entities that are collecting money on that tax bill.
Well, historically, the townships have never gotten any help from anybody on these appeals, and that's why there's been so many stipulations over the years, because they can't afford to fight it by themselves, so.
Well, and why would they? They get less than $1 million, and they get the least amount of money out of the tax bill, but yet they have all the costs to incur the appeal.
Yeah, and just for everybody's information, that the utility companies, their property is not real property. It's called personal property, and it's just like if a fella's in business and he has personal property he uses in his business. He has to pay on that every year, and so do they. And being personal property, it has a different depreciation rate. Well, in fact, it does have a lot different depreciation rate than real property. And other than, historically, other than the phone companies, they've all paid. Phone companies have a special deal.
I had a question for you, Dennis. Tom Greer, his fees are being paid by the Michigan Township Association?
Commissioner, I can't answer that, in all honesty. I assumed from this that they were being paid for by the townships.
Okay, and I see.
But they're not?
The MTA is just filing an amicus brief in addition to him. Okay.
But Beth, maybe you may have some information?
I don't know on this specific case, but my guess is from what I've seen at East Bay, Tom Greer, no, it's being paid by the townships.
Yeah, that was my thought.
And MTA usually uses their attorneys.
Okay.
MTA is not even involved.
Yeah, well, they're filing a brief.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one quick announcement. Tomorrow is strategic planning for the board at noon. And so you'll be here in this room, scheduled from noon to 1, or noon to 3. Yeah, and there will be lunch that you'll pay for yourself out of your fund, so we'll have some lunch. Sorry, Larry. I thought I would do good and get lunch, and then Larry and Chris told me they're on salads and veggies only, and we ordered pizza, so.
Yeah, water.
Water and salads.
Who cares what they're eating?
So, anyway, noon tomorrow, just a reminder.
Thank you, Mr.
That's all I
Chairman.
had, Mr. Chairman.
All right, moving right
All right.
along.
Civic Center Baseball.
Now you got
No.
consent calendar.
Consent calendar.
Consent calendar.
Wait a minute, that's right, we gotta go back to that.
Sorry, guys. Started.
Yeah, the non-consent calendar. All right. Here, I thought we were gonna set a time record
First
too.
up.
Number 26.
107.
Okay, yeah, I pulled that off. I know somebody would make a motion to approve this, and then we can talk about it.
I'd move that we approve the, Grand Traverse County approves the purchase of 7 replacement vehicles for the Grand Traverse Sheriff Department for the amount not to exceed a total of $143,738.
Support.
Okay, I am going to vote against this, and it's not because I'm opposed to the sheriff getting new cars, because I think the sheriff probably needs new cars, but I don't understand why this wasn't put in the budget. It was put into maybe we can buy this out of the capital improvement fund, and maybe we won't, but we'll make a decision later. And no sooner had we got just barely 1 month into the year, and boom, here it is. Let's spend this money. And I don't know how difficult this year is. I'm guessing financially it's going to be pretty difficult for the county, and I'm just not sure that I want ready to jump in and start making commitments this early. We also already committed the $700,000 more or less for the new central records software. Part of that is that I feel that some of the ICE money could have been used for that, and it wasn't, or at least a very small amount was. So anyway, that's the only reason I pulled it off.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Stepka?
Yes.
Friend?
No.
Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Richardson?
No.
Motion or Chairman Thomas?
Yes.
I almost missed you, sorry.
Thanks.
It passed.
I like that voting business. Next one is number 28. Page 112.
I pulled that, Mr. Chairman, so I could abstain from the vote.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for the Commission on Aging to move into a contract with Lark Lawn and Garden for maintenance of the lawn equipment for their home share program at a rate of $55 per hour with a 15% discount on all parts.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Discussion? All in favor? Roll call.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Fleece?
Abstain.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes. Next one's number 35.
Oh, I pulled that one. Not any problem with the resolution, but probably something I should have brought up at the subcommittee when we talked about it. I had mentioned to you at that subcommittee meeting that I called a couple of these applicants just to thank them for, volunteering. And one of them had mentioned, the CFO from NMC had mentioned to me in that conversation, she said, just want to let you know, I hope there's not a problem with the issue that, NMC's chair of their board is Russ Childs, and Russ Childs is involved in an some type of employment relationship with the county, and want to make sure that that's not a problem or conflict. I didn't perceive it as one. It kind of rolled off my back and didn't bring it up at the subcommittee meeting. And then after that, I thought, I don't think it is a technical conflict of interest, but it's probably something that we should make the decision to appoint the committee knowing that, and I should mention that. I did talk to Bob a little bit, and I think you concurred that there's no technical conflict of interest, but it might just be a good idea to mention it now rather than somebody saying later, I didn't realize that fact.
That's correct, and the concern is that Kathy Jones is in a subservient position to Ross Childs at NMC. She's the finance director. He's the chairman of the Board of Trustees at NMC.
Yes.
And obviously, this would impact the salary of the interim director of the Siegel study, would impact the salary of the director of Public Works. So
Actually, I don't think that's true, Bob, because he's not on salary. He is a contractual employee.
that is a contractual
He's paid per hour.
And Bob and I didn't know that when we talked,
Yeah.
whether he was an employee or whether it was contractual.
Yeah.
So if the commission doesn't have a problem with it, we can go ahead and approve the resolution. If the commission does have an issue with it, we did have only an additional fifth applicant who had a finance background as well. So it's just the pleasure of the commission.
I would just like to add that Ross Child 2 will be done in August, so that might, before this is probably wrapped up, just as a second thought.
Well, I really don't see any kind of a conflict since he's not an employee of the county, and this won't affect his compensation in any way. I think she's an excellent candidate, and my recommendation would be, now that you've acknowledged it, that you approve the recommendation from committee.
I do think she would be an excellent person based on the conversation that we had and some of the background and experiences that she's had, particularly with NMC.
I would move that Grand Traverse Board of Commissioners approve appointment of Kathy Jones, Elizabeth Sayre King, Paula Segala, and Kay Saratelli to the Siegel Study Ad Hoc Committee.
Support.
And I'm sorry, be it further resolved that Commissioners Inman, Friend, Max Bauer, and Stepka also serve on the committee.
Support.
Been moved and supported, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
Aye.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Please?
No.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Yes.
Thomas?
Next one is number 38.
Mr. Chairman, I had this pulled, has to do with the commissioner compensation for the next term of commissioners. I'm not in favor of the resolution reducing our compensation. I work very hard at this job. I think I earn every cent, including the compensation that we're paid, and I'm opposed to this motion, and I'll vote that way.
Just want to point out there was an error in the resolution and the way it was drafted, and so it was reviewed by the clerk, and there's a new one on your desk with the change, and basically what it is it's relocating one of the pieces, putting the $2,000 in lieu of insurance under the health section.
Motion.
What's your pleasure of the board?
I have a comment or question. When I looked through the minutes, maybe I didn't understand the conversation we were having at the subcommittee level, but with respect to the post-65 Medicare Advantage insurance, I didn't feel that we were just moving the vesting period of that to 10 years, from 6 to 10 years. I thought we were removing that for commissioners in the future, although we were allowing the current retired commissioners to be grandfathered in, as well as the commissioners here who are currently vested.
Mr. Chairman?
Have a motion.
Yeah, that was, well, first of all, let me make a motion to approve the resolution, the substitute resolution on your desk for the commissioner compensation for 2011-2012 as presented, which includes salaries remain the same for 7,000, vice chair at 7,500, and chair at 8,000. Meeting per diems at $35 per meeting with a maximum of $90 per day. Health insurance to be provided for single coverage with 10% copay. Additional family coverage available to purchase at county's cost. Commissioners who opt out of the insurance are eligible to receive the $2,000 stipend. Remaining benefits of vision, dental, life insurance, and retirement will remain the same as it currently is. The 3 current retired commissioners who receive the post-65 Medicare Advantage insurance will be grandfathered into the program, and the program will be made only available to the commissioners who retire with 10 years of service.
Support.
Let's start here.
To address what Beth brought up, Larry, would you, the program will only be made available to commissioners who retire with 10 years of service. Would you be willing to insert the word current before the word commissioners?
Well, it'll be current and future commissioners.
Well, but Beth's comment was that we're not going to.
Yeah, I mean, my motion was, I think Sonny's original motion, and then I supported it. My understanding is that we wanted to continue that benefit moving forward, but we changed the years of service from 6 to 10. So we just wanted a clarification that the ones that were in it already are grandfathered in. That would be former Commissioner Muha had 20 years, former Commissioner Underwood had 20 years, and former Commissioner Herb Lemkel had 10 years. So we thought we'd grandfather them in, and that the minimum years so far for those commissioners was 10 years, so we would just put that at 10 years moving forward. I mean, that was the thought.
Okay, so
Yeah.
your answer would be no.
Yes. And just a clarification, if I would, on the eligibility of the 2,000 stipend, any commissioner can, accept that 2,000 or something less or not at all. So,
My recollection is the same as Commissioner Friend's. However, in the interest of going in the direction we're going in, which I fully support, I will be voting for this motion.
Yeah, this is going to save us a little bit of money, about, what did we say, about $11,000, which is better than a sharp stick in the eye, that's for sure. But, I thought we were getting rid of the post-65 Medicare Advantage insurance. I don't know how the commission can find it acceptable to have the post-65 Medicare Advantage insurance I'm not suggesting we're taking it away from anybody who's already receiving it or anybody who's vested to get those benefits. I'm suggesting we take it away from those of us who are currently here and not vested and future commissioners. How in the world can you, this is a program that we put $100,000 toward, and that's it. We cap it, and we divide it by the number of enrollees. How can we sit here as commissioners and we don't work the 40-hour, I mean, we do put a lot of hours into this. I understand that. You know that as much as I do. But how can I can't see putting us in the same pool as employees who have worked 40, 50, 60 hours a week, whatever, 35 hours a week, in that same pool and taking that marginal amount away from them in their post-65 health care insurance. I can't see that. And I do have an issue with health care insurance. I don't believe that we should offer the health care insurance. I understand that it's a valuable benefit. I think it should be a benefit for the full-time employees.
Commissioner Friend, I agree with you. However, what this motion does is ask commissioners to pay 10% of their health care premium, and it's a significant reduction in benefit. And I think that we can address your concerns, not necessarily in this motion, but at another, make a motion, add to it. But I think it's important that we pass this. I think we're going in the right direction, so I will
Take a vote.
Sonny?
I guess, I've spent the last 12 years here absolutely not having part of this discussion, because when we talk about commissioners' benefit packages, it has never truly affected me, because I elected on my own a number of years ago not to take the county's health insurance. That being said, like I told you at Ways and Means last month, I recently sat down and figured out what the health care for myself and my family would have cost out of my pocket, and has cost out of my pocket in the 12 years I've been here, and it's over $100,000. So it's a significant dollar amount. One thing that you need to be very careful when you talk about, how much the savings is going to be, is remember this goes based on whoever's sitting in these chairs that we're sitting in. Right now, we currently have 4 county commissioners that take the health care benefit. Next November, we could have, or in January, we could have 9 that take the benefit, or we could have none that take the benefit. So don't use numbers based on who is currently sitting in these chairs, because it truly is not the right number. I think what this policy change does is it brings us more in line with what I will call the real world, whereas employees have health care available to them with a copay, and if they want benefit for their spouse or their family, they're responsible for paying for it. And that's what this recommendation does.
Inman, or please?
Sepka.
All right. I want to get back to Commissioner Richardson's question, if I understood it. Maybe I didn't quite understand it. I think when we got into discussion at the committee level about who this would affect, you indicated, well, if we take a look at the ones that have extensive number of years here, then they're probably already in at the moment. And the question I think you asked is, would we grandfather that benefit just for, the ones that are already in it and the ones that are sitting here today, and commissioners that would be elected moving forward, they would not receive that benefit? Is that the question you wanted me to ask?
Yes.
You wanted to ask me?
Basically, yeah.
All right. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, because we've all put time into the county, and we have, and the it's common for businesses that want to scale back something. They grandfather their current employees in, and they start something new with new employees. I mean, that's fine. I don't have a rub with, if the commission feels strongly about this in terms of a vote, that we would cap the benefit to the ones that are in it and the ones that are currently serving here at the county. And then effective newly elected officials at the beginning of next year, that benefit is no longer available.
How about currently vested commissioners?
Yeah, I mean, there are,
I mean, I got enough wiggle with that.
I find this discussion from the other day and today very interesting. Here we are, reducing benefits for, like Sonny said, people that are going to sit in these chairs eventually. We're certainly, by reducing those benefits, as Mr. Mayor said, not going to be attracting anybody. I'm sure they don't run for this position for the benefits and the health insurance and the pay, but we have limited to the residents of this county who can be a county commissioner by virtue of having 3 meetings in the mornings at 7:30 a.m. that sometimes could last as long as 3 hours. We have a rule that they won't go, well, we won't introduce anything at past 3 hours, but it could go to 4 hours. I don't know of an employer that would be so gracious to allow an employee I certainly couldn't in my business, and I don't think Mr. Wheelock could either, every Wednesday morning, pay them to attend a meeting for 3 to 4 hours, plus lose the production, particularly in a busy time. So consequently, somebody that is gainfully employed, not self-employed, I think couldn't be a commissioner in Grand Traverse County. Another thing that I really find interesting is somebody said, I think it was Sonny, 4 commissioners take the hospitalization. So doing arithmetic, you'd have 5 that don't. But I find it interesting, the ones that don't gave themselves more than a triple raise, went from $600 to $2,000. I thought the idea of this conversation was to reduce the cost of the commissioners to the county. And I don't see how you can do that when you were getting $600, now you're going to get $2,000. I think Mr. Stepka is the only exception to that rule. I don't believe he takes the insurance, and I don't believe he takes the stipend.
Correct.
So,
And also Beth.
Also death.
okay, so you have people sitting here voting, talking out of both sides of their mouth, and I don't do that. I've caught a lot of flack over the meeting we had. I didn't refuse to make a motion to work for $1 a year with nothing else other than $1 a year. I thought at that meeting, we were there to discuss the issues. A motion got made afterwards, and as far as I knew, we wouldn't be making any motions at that committee meeting. But I think if you're gonna talk, then you ought to walk the talk. And I don't think that over a triple increase from 600 to 2,000 is necessarily looking out for the taxpaying citizens of Grand Traverse County. And I think we ought to seriously look at allowing every resident in Grand Traverse County to have an equal opportunity to run for this seat and be able to attend if they're employed, not employed, or whatever. I think it's grossly unfair that a person has to be either unemployed or self-employed to be a commissioner, because, like I said, I don't know of any employers that could consistently, for a 2-year period, one term, give that kind of time off.
I would be happy to amend my motion with regard to the Medicaid 65 post-65 Medicare Advantage. It would read as follows: the 3 currently retired commissioners who receive the post-65 Medicare Advantage insurance will be grandfathered into the program, and the program will only be made available to commissioners who retire with 10 years of service, serving up to the year 2012 and prior years. Is there a support?
Who seconded that?
I did. Yeah,
You agree with it?
fine.
So it adds up 2012.
I agree with Larry Fleece. I think that, if, you know, I mean, I also agree with Sonny that, you know, we don't even know who's going to be here next year, because that's what we're doing. We're setting compensation for next year. We're not setting compensation for this particular board. There's no guarantee that any of us will even run for re-election. But on the other hand, looking at the 9 of us who are here, 4 of us take health insurance, and we are, to varying degrees, going to be, you know, spending more money for that. 2 people take nothing at all, so they're not affected, and 3 who take the buyout will have the opportunity to take a larger buyout. I would prefer that the buyout not be changed, but I also think that what we're talking about here is a big step forward from what it's been. So unless everyone else agrees that we should change the buyout, I will support the motion as it stands right now.
Go ahead, Sonny.
I guess the only thing that I would add to that, Ross, is that the $2,000 payment in lieu of benefit is what we have directed staff to negotiate with all county employees employees if they choose to opt out of the county's insurance policy. We've directed staff to negotiate all of our contracts to the $2,000. So I believe it's a consistency thing.
I understand it's consistent, but I have a problem with the $2,000 buyout too for everybody else, so that's okay. Like I said, I'll support it as made.
The study showed very prominently that the $2,000 stipends were a fraction of the cost of paying health insurance for employees. In fact, I believe the Siegel study recommended that number be in the $5,000 to $6,000 number. Mr. Chairman, call the motion, please.
No,
Yeah, let's go to
Mike had a,
I'd like to say something.
Go on.
Go ahead.
And Mike would too.
Just, I think there's a distinction. I mean, we aren't employees of the county.
Yeah, we are.
I'm sorry, full-time employees.
Well, some of us think we are.
Well, and I appreciate that. A lot of the commissioners put a ton of time into this, and that's great. But by definition, this is, we're part-time employees. And I agree with Commissioner Friend. I think we should treat it that way and not take the health care as technically, part-time employees. That should be left for the full-time employees. And I believe that across the board on everything, including the $2,000 stipend, and I guess the Medicare issue, with the exception of the 3 former commissioners that would be grandfathered in. I think this is a public service. I think we'll still attract good people to be on the commission. We don't run for this position for the salary or for the benefits, and especially given, I've said this before, the current economic conditions with people not having health care in the community, losing their homes. I think we need to take a leadership role, and that's how I feel, and I would agree with Commissioner Friend.
a couple things. When you mentioned 2 people who weren't affected, that would be Mike and I. And understand, it's not that we're not affected. We have just chosen to forego this based on principle already, so it's not that we're not affected. Also, I know there's at least 4 of us who would vote to change this resolution so that we have our salary, we have the per diems, and we just take away the health care and the benefits. There's 4 of us that would do that. Larry, you mentioned, Commissioner Fleece, you mentioned that this should really then be about saving money. And Commissioner Wheelock said it shouldn't be about the 9 commissioners who are here, but a composition of whoever's here in the future. Well, just based on this alone, if we made that motion, if we had that 5th vote, we would save $36,000 based on the 9 commissioners that are here. Now, if we had commissioners next term that even utilize the health care more than we do currently, that savings would escalate. So I would suggest to vote this resolution down and let's come back with another motion immediately following it that does exactly that.
I don't know how we got to comparing ourselves to full-time employees. I certainly don't consider myself a full-time employee. But by no stretch of the imagination do I earn the salary or the wages that even the lowest paid, I don't even come close, none of us do, of the lowest paid county employee, full-time employee. So I don't see how you can compare yourself to full-time versus part-time. There shouldn't be a comparison there. And the responsibility that we shoulder in this position, if you do your job properly and you're looking out for the citizens of Grand Traverse County, you more than earn everything we were getting previous to our resolution here. In fact, the Siegel study said we're quite a ways underpaid. So I just can't support the motion, that's all.
Taking your lead on that, Commissioner Fleece, based on the Siegel study review, which, the Board of Commissioners, since I've been on for the past 18 years, have always taken the comparison of counties in our size group, and we've done a balance. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest, we're somewhere in the close in the middle or whatever. And we've always been consistent with other boards and commissions around the state in terms of their total compensation. I don't, right now, we're probably in the middle, and I think the compensation's fair. It's not made up. It's not any more than Leelanau County and Antrim County and some of the surrounding counties around northern Michigan receive for their benefits. No one's making a ruckus about it. No one's bringing it up. Everyone's happy with it. I'll tell you what, when we go out and, if there's an empty seat or whatever, you really have a tough time trying to attract the same people we're trying to attract to help us with the Siegel study, people that are professionals, either in their own business or working for an employer, that have got the background you'd like to see to run a county, and those folks don't have the time commitment to get involved in this job, which is, in my opinion, is a full-time job with part-time pay. And how do you I think there's something more than public service here, and that's, there has to be something else that they're provided with to allow them to take time away from their family, time away from their job, time away to run campaigns every 2 years and spend money and sitting in 10 chairs going to all the township meetings and our meetings. This is an enormous time commitment. It wasn't like it was before, many years ago. And, this is at least, I think, a fair way of thanking people for going beyond what I would consider just normal public service. And, I'll tell you what, if I try to compare myself with the hours that a state representative puts in or a township supervisor puts in, I would value to say I'm very close. And I don't know about any of you, you can measure the time and commitment you put into your job as a county commissioner. But I'm going to tell you what, those supervisors get paid anywhere from $38,000 to $80,000 a year. They get, that's public service, but yet they get compensated for their time and effort into the community. And we are one of the lowest paid in Grand Traverse County in terms of salary, and for people that are doing the amount of time that we have for like the supervisors in terms of benefits. So I don't have any problem putting this thing through. I think we're holding the line on salary. We held the line on salary since 2001. We've never received an increase. Our salaries are substantially lower than our peers. Everything else is sort of in line. We're giving up the health care in this motion as a sign that, we're willing to trim that cost. So I think it's a fair resolution, and I think it's fair to us. I think it's fair for, people that are considering running in an up-and-coming election, because you cannot pull these people away from their family and their jobs for nothing. You just can't do it.
I think it'd be fair to our audience to vote on it.
Well, I forgot what I was going to say. So we'll call a question.
Let's just get it over with. Yeah.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hooper,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Fleece,
No.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Stepka,
No.
Friend,
No.
Inman,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
6-3.
Thought I was going to forget it. It passed.
Okay, now where were we?
44.
44.
What pin file?
I asked this be pulled, Mr. Chairman. This motion really should have two parts. The first one is to accept the grant. And then we reported to you in committee that in order to come up with the full $45,000 necessary, that we had approached Peggy Haynes, the Register of Deeds, to see if the balance, $25,000, could be pulled from the technology fund. And then I understand at the Ways and Means meeting, which I was absent from, Ms. Haynes raised the question about she wasn't sure she was going to commit that $25,000. We have talked, and I'm pleased to say that as Peg has done a number of times in recent years, Peg has agreed to donate that $25,000 to allow this project to move forward. She asked one thing of the board, She's had a number of changes in her office, a number of improvements. I think she's worked very hard to try to bring the technology up to speed and to try to bring that office into the 21st century. I think she's done a good job with that. And so what she's asking is, in exchange, I'll say, that's probably not the right word, but in giving that $25,000 and continuing to cooperate, she wondered if it would be possible for the county board to establish a committee of maybe 3 commissioners that would be willing to go down and meet with her, to look at her organization, to look at the structure of the office, to talk to her about some of the issues she's facing, and just kind of, get up to date on where she's working and what she's doing. And that's the only thing that she's asked for in order to make this $25,000 contribution. And I think that's real reasonable. We used to have the liaison commissioners, and we no longer have that. And so I think she's just saying, would it be possible to have a group of 3 that might come down and meet with her to talk about issues she's facing? So with that, if you're agreeable with that, I guess my suggestion is that you accept the grant and that you authorize us to go out and get bids on this orthography work at the $45,000 number, with her donating the $25,000 that we didn't get from the grant.
25,000 or 25%?
No. We have to match the tribe's grant with 25%, but she's not only going to match that 25%, she's going to give a total of $25,000 to pay the full cost. So now we have all the money to do the study.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the grant from the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians amount of $14,804.56.
Support.
Moved and supported, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to appoint a subcommittee of commissioners to meet with Register of Deeds Ms. Haynes to review her operation and properly thank her for her participation in technical advancements in Grand Traverse County.
Support. I'd volunteer if you want.
I'm looking for 3 hands.
I'll do it, I guess.
Get them
You too.
written down.
Which 3?
She said 3.
Oh, I don't need to be one of the 3. I'd rather have Commissioner Wheelock.
Thanks.
So who are we? I thought it was the 3 of us.
Yeah, I thought there were only 3 hands that went up.
Yeah.
All right, then it
Yeah,
is.
Max
then it
Bauer
is-
was the 3 of us.
Do you want to make that part of your motion?
The commissioners, Max Bauer, Wheelock, and Inman will meet with the Register of Deeds and properly thank her for her participation in advancement of technical equipment in Grand Traverse County.
Who supported that?
Inman.
You agree?
Yeah.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Carried.
Thank you.
Number 49, page 180.
Oh, I asked for this to be removed just because we talked about this at the subcommittee level. Afterwards, I talked about it a little bit more with Dennis, and one of the questions I had was, without a real opinion on it, I asked why we chose the 18 to 20%. And Dennis, I think you mentioned that you felt that that was kind of the direction of the commission. Typically, what's the roundabout suggested through like GFOA or something like that is usually
That's
around
fine.
15 to 17, is that
17
right?
to 20.
Dean, do you recall those numbers?
Well, the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA, has actually wider ranges that they recommend, and they have separate ranges depending on whether you're looking at revenues or expenditures. We are higher at these ranges, but that's for, I think, good reason. It's because of the economic situation that we face. But to answer your question, the GFOA, if they're looking at expenditures, it's usually in the 7 to 15%. And the revenue range that they would suggest is a much broader range. It can be as low as 5 or as high as 15. And those ranges, the upper and lower limits, depend on what variation or variability you see in your revenues and expenditures. If you have very low volatility or variation in your revenues, they tend to suggest a lower range. But if you see more variance from year to year, they suggest the higher range,
So
higher limit.
I just wanted to be clear if this was, the 18 to 20% was a recommendation from you or direction from the commission, and if that was in fact the case, we didn't really talk about that the day that we passed it at the subcommittee level. We kind of looked at the document in its entirety, and we didn't specifically mention our target range, and if indeed we were comfortable with that percentage range.
Yep, and it was a recommendation from us. It wasn't from,
Right.
but it was based on the GFOA recommendations and sort of a compromise between that and where the board set their last range, which was 20%. So that's how we kind of arrived at that number. And the other substantial thing that we should note on this is that we're also suggesting, and we're going to talk to you more about this tomorrow, we're suggesting that we change our emphasis from expenditures to change our emphasis to revenues. We've heard from the commissioners that you think we need to learn to be able to live within our means, and so obviously revenues are the key to that.
Right.
So we're going to talk to you more about that tomorrow, but that's part of how we derived at that, because the revenue range was actually a little higher than the expenditure range, as I recall. So that's how we came up with it.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to adopt the unreserved fund balance policy as outlined in our packets.
Support.
Moved and supported, discussion further?
I guess the only other point that I would make out is the one thing that we have learned over the years when we're going out for bond issues is that Standard & Poor's and all the rating agencies like the fact that we have a fund balance. And that's why we have one of the highest bond ratings of any governmental entity in this state.
Further? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Carried. We come to the last one, number 51.
Yeah.
Hold that.
That's me. I think the idea of talking about a defined benefit plan again, I mean, we're going through the pain and agony, if you will, of switching over from defined benefit to defined contribution. I don't think we're getting good information from MERS. I believe that MERS is enamored of defined benefit plans, and they will do anything in their power at this point to get us back into a defined benefit plan. So I voted against this at the committee level, and I'm going to vote against it now, assuming anybody makes a motion.
The only thing is, this is,
Yeah, it's only a study. Yeah,
To do a study.
I've heard that before.
yeah, I know.
And my feeling is if MERS wants the study so bad, if MERS thinks it's such a great idea, let them pay for the study. But although they did reduce the cost of it, they haven't offered to actually pay for the study, so. I mean, the only reason we're in the pain we're in on the defined, on the closed employee groups is because MERS keeps shortening the time frame in which we have to make good on the money. And I know it's painful now, but I would say that if we stick with it in 10 years, we will be much, much better financial shape. And very happy that we went through the pain to get there.
Well, when we went to defined contribution, they sold us on that back then.
Exactly. And trust me.
Larry, and Darrell.
Ross, Larry and Ross.
Lucky.
Ross, I understand what you're saying and where you're coming from, but when Mr. Bott asked for this way back when. And I was astounded that the commission turned down his request at that time. And we, in case you haven't noticed or you haven't ever ridden the elevator, down in the first floor, I believe there's 4 years of plaques there for his financial work for Grand Traverse County, which is hard to come by.
I understand that. I have a great deal of respect and trust in Dean Bott.
Well, I think if Mr. Bott asked for something like that, and I've known Dean for a number of years, he's a very, very conservative individual, and I might add, from South County. But anyway, I would respect Dean's request and Dennis's request, and, it's like asking a mechanic to fix something. He needs 2 wrenches, but you won't give him the wrenches. I am going to vote for the 2 wrenches.
Well, when this thing was first originally presented, I was just like an absolute no. And, but that was prior to finding out that we have $1.2 million hole to fill in 2011. And I feel the two elephants that we're looking at our budget in 2011 is trying to convince all the employees now that we've made our move to co-pay their health insurance for 10%. We've got to find a way across the board to make that happen. That's a $500,000. And the defined benefit and the accelerated amortization, which is going to put extreme pressure on us and our budget for the coming near future as they continue to shrink that amortization down. So I felt a little bit better about the possibility of coming out for a study when I listened to the representative from MERS come in and actually explain how the hybrid would work, that it would be a very small supplemental defined benefit plan combined with a defined contribution plan, and the combination of the two would not exceed what we're originally spending right now for retirement costs. So you would lower the amount we're going to give the staff member for the contribution and supplement with a small defined benefit, but the amortization goes back to 28 years. Now, the case is still out, I think, but all I'm saying is we should at least have the opportunity to evaluate it to see if this makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And then also have, in the meanwhile, it looks like we can't go out and bond until some law is passed. So, as a budget issue for 2011 and 2012, I think we need to look at the data, and if it costs us $11,000 to do the data, I think it's worth the investment.
Make a motion.
Then we'll decide what we want to do from there.
Sonny?
Well, again, I find myself in a position wanting to make the motion so as that we can have the discussion that we've already had.
Thank you for calling.
So I would like to move to approve the analysis of the hybrid plan.
Support.
Now if I could have the discussion
Touche.
piece. I don't know how we can have any true discussion about whether this hybrid plan has value, doesn't have value, whether it meets our current needs or our future needs, unless we know what the numbers are. And the only way we get the numbers is by having the actuarial done. And that's what Dean Bott asked for in October, I think it was, and we've been discussing it off and on ever since. So we have a motion.
These numbers are going to change. We cannot trust these numbers.
So I do it annually.
And I'm going to run from anything that says defined benefit in the sentence as fast as I can.
Well, my concern about the defined benefit isn't what it does with the current situation with the current employees, it's what it does in the future, and that's what we have no idea about right now.
And if I can, Larry Fleets, if I can address your comments about Dean, a lot of my opposition to this comes from a rather lengthy discussion I had about this issue with Dean back in January, when he was pointing out that, the terms of the defined hybrid plan were had changed from August when we first voted on it to January. And that he wasn't even getting straight answers out of MERS. And I don't know that we will ever get straight answers out of MERS, but in my mind, the only reason we're in the problem we're in is because of their continuing shortening of the time frame that we're in. And if they would take a more rational approach on that, it wouldn't even be an issue.
I guess my point will be I will support the actuarial. I'm not sure I'm in any position whatsoever to support the hybrid plan. But I think we have to have numbers in order to have any reasonable conversation.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
No.
Richardson?
No?
Stepka?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Passed.
Okey dokey.
Okay.
Baseball.
Now
Now?
we're all the way down to baseball.
Okay.
Save the best for last.
Yes, and I'm going to try and be brief, and then I will make a motion for purpose of discussion. First, I will give everyone a little bit of history. At our January Parks and Rec Commission meeting, several members of the public stepped forward and expressed their dissatisfaction with the baseball program and the way it was handled last year. We had a brief discussion during our January meeting. We did not take any action. I was contacted as chairman of Parks and Rec. I was contacted by 3 commissioners, and I was asked to have a special meeting. We held our special Parks and Rec Commission meeting February 11th. And at that meeting, we had a lengthy discussion about whether or not Grand Traverse County should step forward and have a baseball program. A motion was made, it was tabled, and it was brought back at our February 18th Parks and Rec Commission meeting. We again had a lengthy discussion, and the motion was passed to have Grand Traverse County run a baseball program. That being said, I would like to make the motion that American Legion Post 35 enter into an agreement with Grand Traverse County to direct the junior baseball program for Grand Traverse County Civic Center for the 2010 season.
Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Okay.
Bob, I got a really dumb question here for you. I'm sitting here with an American Legion. I'm affiliated with American Legion. I'm a membership with American Legion. Do I have a conflict on this?
No, it's not
I
a
don't have a
contract
financial
between
matter.
public,
I mean,
right, it's not a
I'm not on
financial
any
matter.
governing board, but I'm a member of the American Legion.
That's correct.
So I'm safe to talk and vote on this?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah, we have also a Parks and Recreation thing here, they're saying they want to take us over, and why is, aren't you the chairman of that board, and then, but you wanted the Legion to do it?
Yes, and
Perhaps I need an
I'm ready to
explanation there.
discuss, but I wanted to make the motion first.
You just made it.
Yeah. And we had a second, so now we can have the discussion.
Right, so that's why I made my point. I asked the question.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to, I know you know this, but I just want to point out, a lot of people have waited the length of the meeting so they'd have an opportunity to make their thoughts known to you, and, I was just going to suggest that you might do that before the board engages in discussion.
Well, yeah, but that's why I'm glad that we got the motion and support.
You want to ask for public comment?
Well, I'm going to as soon as you guys get done talking.
No, no.
We want to talk after.
We have a motion, I made the second.
We'll
Let's have the-
talk
let's have
after the public
input.
comment.
We'll just pretend like this is old public comment.
Thank you. I'm Mark Greiner. I live in Lake Ann, Michigan. I'm not a Grand Traverse County resident. I am the Senior Vice Commander of American Legion Post 35 here in Traverse City. First off, Mr. Chairman, it might take me a few minutes, more than 3 minutes, but I will promise not to waste your time if you will work with me here. First off, thank you all for taking your time to come here tonight. I know several of you commissioners have talked with some of you I don't know, but I appreciate all your time and your service. First and foremost, what I want to say, and I've said this, I echo what I said at the Parks Commission meeting, I am not here to debate what's happened in the past. Things were not right, they weren't good, we're looking towards the future. I think that's where you people are looking to. A couple things were brought out. First and foremost, I put a letter in front of you addressed to the chairman of the board. American Legion Post 35 is requesting the Board of Commissioners enter an agreement with the Post for a junior baseball program at the Grand Traverse Civic Center for the 2010 season. This program would be operated in accordance with the nationally recognized American Legion Junior Baseball Program guidelines. We have a commitment from the Post membership that we will have a program in place and be accepting applications within 15 days of the execution of an agreement with Grand Traverse County. Additionally, we will accept the requirements of background checks, training for coaches and umpires, and the other administrative requirements borne by similar programs, including the cost and the administration of any liability insurance to match other programs. Post 35 has determined that we will advertise an opening for a full-time seasonal program director who will report monthly or more frequently to the Post Executive Committee. We will also institute a regular monthly financial report to the executive committee that would be audited annually and would be reported to the Post membership, copied, of course, to this board or to staff. To address the issue last year of improper actions by Post members, baseball program participants, or other persons involved with the program, the final responsibility for the safe, legal, and efficient operation of the program would belong to myself, the guy that's sitting here right now. Nobody else is the one you'd have to worry about. If it didn't work, you'd come to me, I would make the final decision. That's what's been decided at the Post. Please feel free to contact me on questions or concerns on that. A couple more things we should discuss. At the Parks and Recreation meeting, Mr. Bott, who I've known for a long time, presented some funding issues for the Parks and Recreation Commission. And you have to correct me if I'm wrong. I have a copy of it. I believe it was said that last year, the Grand Traverse County General Fund contributed $54,000 into the program more so than the program, all the different programs took in. So I work for a business, it cost you money to run this Parks and Rec Commission last year. Your constituents appear to accept that because you have a very good system of very good programs. That's good. It appears that next year, or this year that we're in now, you're looking at a $77,000 contribution from the general fund. Again, those are budgeted numbers, they move some. A couple things you'll have to remember is, this year, it's currently being in the final stages, American Legion Post 35 is committed to paying for the services of the field maintenance of over $10,000. That is one revenue piece that would not come in if you take the program over. Additionally, you will probably incur additional costs of staff and other requirements to manage the program. The umpires, the coaches, all the issues that are taken care of there. You do have staff in place now that would handle some of those responsibilities, but then I also know that at that same meeting, your director was asked about his workload. And he stated that he had at least 16 items that he needed to get some direction from the Parks and Rec Commission on how you would like those prioritized. So it would be my assumption that if you know anything about a span of control, 4 to 7 is optimal span of control. If you've got 17 or 16 things you're trying to fix, do you need another one before you've got the other ones fixed? Additional staff may be required to handle that. You would have somewhat less revenue coming in, but whether or not there would be enough sponsors in the form of businesses and such like that, that would still remain to be seen. It is a possibility. There would be some first-time startup costs. I believe Mr. Jones said it was possibly in excess of $20,000. Possibly an agreement could be worked out for some existing equipment if you took it over. Also, the other things that would come into play is, as it stands now, the American Legion philosophy is every child that wants to play baseball is given the opportunity to play. They are not limited by their skills, their abilities, or their ability to pay. We have a scholarship program. Basically, we take care of the costs it takes to get other kids into the program who are not able to. Mr. Jones has said that yes, that is part of a good functioning Parks and Recreation, that you have scholarships. There could possibly become an issue in the future with kids who play ball at the in the current, or what was considered the current American Legion program, that they come from outside of Grand Traverse County, and would you folks feel comfortable with supporting out-of-county residents scholarships so they can play ball at the Civic Center? That's what I basically wrote out ahead of time, and if you have any questions, I'd like to answer them at this time.
I'd like a clarification, Mr. Chairman. Your motion references this letter?
Yeah.
And
I said post 35.
Yes.
right,
Yes.
but the agreement that we're talking about, in the past, Legion, I believe, ran the program, correct?
That is correct,
Yes.
Commissioner.
And is that what's going to happen this year?
You'd have a slightly different structure. We had a committee, and there was a lot of discussion as to whether the committee was a committee of the Grand Traverse County Board, a committee appointed as veterans. That was a gray area. It was 94. This would be a direct function of the American Legion Post 35 under the executive committee. The baseball program pretty much was an independent operation that was operated under the the guidance of Post 35, but it was not an actual, the Post membership didn't take and say, yes, this is how this functions, this is not how this functions. The director of the program and that board did that at that time.
So who would be in charge this year?
As it sits right now, we would end up with hiring a program director. That is the person who would have the responsibility of the day-to-day operations similar to your administrator. The final responsibility on an action under short notice would land on my shoulders. If it was an action that was what I would consider like a board action, it would be at the regular monthly executive board meeting of the American Legion.
And what would the financial responsibility for the county be?
I don't believe there would be anything different than some type of agreement for working out for the maintenance of the fields. We would take the responsibility of providing the insurance, the liability insurance, I believe it was, or whatever is required of other similar programs. And if there's any other things required, the background checks, either we would work them out through Grand Traverse County, or we would provide the results of them to the appropriate parties, and the other things that would be required. But I don't think there would be really any financial involvement other than just the cost of the maintenance of the fields, similar to what's been in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to go.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Good evening. I'm Chris Byrne. I'm a member of the Parks and Rec Board. And I need a little clarification. I have in front of me our draft minutes. They have not been approved from our February 18th meeting, which was last Thursday. And I'd like to read a part from that. And it is motion by Doran, second by Byrne, to extend our sincere gratitude to the American Legion for their many years of dedication by starting and managing the youth baseball program. But we recommend to the County Board of Commissioners that the youth baseball program be operated by Grand Traverse County through the Parks and Recreation Department beginning 2010. So I'm confused, as the motion being brought by Christine is that it's an agreement with American Legion, and that was not the Parks and Rec Board's motion to be brought today.
That confused me too.
If anybody would like to see a copy of these minutes, I would be happy.
Well, I have a concern. If the Parks and Rec Board were to take it over, we would have to add personnel. And it's going to be an additional cost to the county. We have an organization who has performed this function for many, many years. And the statement by Mr. Greiner tonight, where every kid plays, even the ones that can't afford it, they have a scholarship program, I think is really commendable on the American Legion's part, because I listened to some TCAPS teachers at our strategic planning last year said that she had to turn away students that couldn't afford to play. And that's a public school, and I am just really opposed to that principle. I think what the American Legion is proposing here, if I'm not mistaken, I think they've had a change in leadership. They've had some problems in the past, but I think they still ran a good program, and it was for a long time. For the county, like you say, to take it over and incur the cost of taking it over, there aren't too many government-run organizations that are more efficient than a privately run one.
Can I continue with my public comment?
Dick?
May I continue with my public comment? As a representative of the Parks and Rec Board, a few things that I would like to say is, first of all, we are a Parks and Rec department. Parks and Recreation is to provide recreation. I understand that the American Legion has provided baseball. It was brought to our attention by many members of the public, and this has been brought forth not just in January, but last year and in years past, that there's been some difficulty by the Legion. Mark Greiner came to us as a board, and he let us know that they have difficulty running their program. They run on strictly volunteers. This is new to me this week that they are bringing somebody on to run the program. If you all look at the information that our director, Jason Jones, provided you, he has a very well thought out, step-by-step plan starting next week on Monday of what he is going to do to step forth and get this program off the ground. This is what Jason Jones was hired to do. He is a recreation professional. He is certified, and when you are providing things for youth, you need to have certified professional people. We do not allow uncertified, unprofessional people to teach swim lessons in our county pool. Are we going to let unprofessional, uncertified people run a baseball program on our fields? If you look at some of the information that you've received in the past, there has been some very serious difficulty in the American Legion Youth Baseball Program. So serious that it was alarming to me to find out that that was occurring on our county grounds. If we are going to sit here as people who are representing our community, we need to have the forthright, most important thing here is making sure that our youth feel safe. The youth that were involved with baseball last year had to not play a game because there were threats. That's unacceptable. And they were threats that were put out by an American Legion leader. That's unacceptable. I, as a Parks and Rec member, do not feel confident that the American Legion is going to continue to run a quality baseball program unless they have a full-time staff and they bring in certified people. Again, I ask you to look at the information that Jason Jones provided you. I also would like you to think about the fact that Jason Jones is a certified recreation professional. He was hired by this county to run a Parks and Recreation department. Currently, he runs a Parks department with an aquatics program. We as a board have a mission, and our mission is that we will enhance community and quality of life through people, parks, and programs. Our commission is working on changing the way that we have handled our Parks and Rec department in the past. We are taking care of the challenges we have before us and looking to the future. This is an opportunity that we feel, as a Parks Board, can be taken on. It will cost money. You have to spend money to make money, and the Parks and Rec Department will actually, if you look at the numbers that Jason Jones has provided you, will actually come out ahead. A Parks and Rec Department is to provide services for their community members. The community came to us as a board stating that a service was needed, youth baseball, and a quality youth baseball program. I ask you, without the expertise and the certification, are you 100% assured that we are not going to be sitting here a year from now discussing the same situation if we as a county do not take on this program? I would hate for the county to procrastinate and end up a year later dealing with the same issues that we had last year, the year before, and the year before with American Legion Baseball. There was not good scheduling. 40 some odd children showed up to play games and were told they were at the wrong fields on the wrong day. Those types of things happen because nobody is accountable. If Grand Traverse County Parks and Rec Department takes over this program, you have Jason Jones who is accountable. You'd have your board who is accountable. You also would have an employee who would be hired that would be accountable. I think we, as a department, have a lot of abilities that the American Legion does not. We have ways to get this program started as of next week, getting information out to the schools, having online registration as well as mail-in registration, walk-in registration. We have people on staff in the Parks Department that can do that. I fear that the procrastination on this is going to end us back up to where we are. Mr. Greiner brought up budgeting, brought up Jason's many projects that he's working on. We as a board are working on that with him. We've worked on our mission, we're working on our vision, we're working on our strategic planning, and that is all a process. This baseball is part of that process. And I guess I would just like to leave with, let's take our bouldering mistakes of the past and our roadblocking challenges of the present and build them into stairs that support our climb as a board into the future.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicole Whitcup, and my address is 7007 Secor Road. And before I start with my comment, I guess I am a little bit confused as well. I'm confused about the motion that is on the floor right now, because I was at that meeting last week also, and I thought that the recommendation was to come to this commission with the recommendation that the Parks Board take over the program. So I'm not really, can you clarify maybe for me when you started this saying that you're recommending that the American Legion take over? Because you were on that board, so I'm just confused. You don't have to clarify if you don't want, but.
I support the American Legion continuing the baseball program, and that's why I made the motion.
Okay, well, I hope that all of you are aware that the vote of the Recreation Board was to go forward and take this program on. And so I feel like that's what's coming before you today is their recommendation. And so that is my purpose for being here tonight. I think it would be fair to assume that you have all been made aware of the concerns that we've had in the past with the problems that we had. I think that all of you have received information pertinent to some of the issues where police were called in last year regarding treatment of parents or players or coaches or board members. And I'm very concerned about the American Legion's ability to run an ethical, effective, and efficient baseball program this year. I can appreciate the concerns that many of you have, because as time goes by, when any notion of change comes forward to people, I know one's reaction is to resist. But I would, however, like to request that you put aside any uneasy or personal feelings and please consider the facts, which are, you have before you a recommendation from your own commission or subcommission to create a county-run program. You also have access to a substantial number of very qualified and knowledgeable volunteers that would be willing to start tomorrow and do whatever it would take to get this program going. You have the power to make sure that 700 to 900 children play baseball this summer without having to worry about being harassed or having games canceled because their families have been threatened. And in a country where overriding messages right now are that our economy is suffering and damaged, you have the ability to take on a self-sustaining program and make money. For those affected by our ailing economy, you also have the ability to keep costs low to players because you already own the fields, and I'm sure Jason will go into detail more on the budgetary aspects because that's not what I'm here about. But I also believe that he has provided for a scholarship fund as well. The Legion is not ready nor capable, by their own admission, to run an appropriate and smooth baseball season. If so, they would have shown more preparation by now. We have been to at least 3 meetings in the last month, and the Legion has yet to step forward with a concrete plan, and also have declined to show that they have an adamant desire and a preparedness to go forward with this program. They have failed to show this. Please, for the sake of the children of Grand Traverse County, please carefully consider, with all the integrity and community responsibility that each of you have been elected to this board right now, to do the right thing. And that is to move forward with confidence and honor with the recommendation before you that has come from the subcommittee or the subcommission of the Parks and Recreation Board. There's a well-known saying that I always like to refer to, and that is, it takes a village to raise a child. And I just see this as the perfect opportunity to embrace this notion. And that is all I want to say. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Russ Clark, 2629 East Crown Drive, member of the County Parks and Recreation Commission for the past 13 years. I had no realm of baseball other than I took my kids through the American Legion, and it was an excellent run program when my children were still here in the community. American Legion has done an outstanding job over the years. When this came forth in front of the Parks and Rec Commission, starting about a month and a half ago, I was quite alarmed with some of the issues that had taken place over the past year with the American Legion program and the impact on the youth and the volunteers of our community to help make it happen. At our Parks and Rec Commission, we heard a number of different viewpoints from the committee members who are an advisory board to American veterans, and they stepped forth and said that this program needs to happen. It does happen. It does entail a number of children, as you've already heard, up to 900 children involved in the program. And the Parks and Rec Commission discussed and debated at length about this aspect, the pros and cons, and they made a recommendation, which is in your packet, that the Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation Department take on the responsibility of baseball at the Civic Center. I still stand by that recommendation that was made, and I hope you will also. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
We are allowed to ask
Go ahead.
questions. No conversation, but questions. This would be a change in philosophy from how the Parks and Rec Department has operated in the past, correct?
That is correct. Historically, the Parks and Rec Department has been a landlord, providing land for special interest groups to run programs. As we look into the crystal ball of the future, we are starting to see more and more special interest groups waver in their ability to continue because of the tough economic times. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, this is the beginning of what's to come. There will be more special interest groups not being able to fulfill their original commitment to provide recreation, and the responsibility will ultimately fall on the County Parks and Recreation Department.
So some of the other organizations that you have that are providing athletic opportunities for youth are, you have Grand Traverse Hockey Association, Center Ice, T-Bays. You could probably name some more.
Yeah, T-Bays, Ice, and there's a lacrosse group that's out there. There's obviously there's been American Legion for a number of years at the Civic Center, and I'm drawing a blank on a couple others, but there are some in the
YMCA
Now-
operates all the softball.
With T-Bays and with ICE or GTHA or the skating league, those are primarily volunteer-driven, parent-driven, correct?
Yeah.
Has there been any effort or consideration of a parent effort or defining some parent organization to operate this?
The members of the community that were the advisory board for American Legion have expressed their interest in continuing to assist the county as an advisory group. They were in the front lines helping run the program in the past. They have a history with the program for a number of years and have helped with some of the organizational aspects.
Which group was that again?
It's actually members in this committee.
There's two of us. Okay, and what group, was there a title to that group?
It's not an organized group.
Oh, okay.
It's an appointed a volunteer board, is that right? Volunteer board.
I think what you were saying is they've offered to assist in the
Correct.
operation of the
That
program.
is correct. Clarify, that's correct.
And there was some discussion, Commissioner, to address that question further, I think with the YMCA and also with Little League from time to time. My understanding is Little League is actually kind of turned that around now, and they're more interested in talking to us about running the program.
That is
That's the last I
correct.
heard anyway, so.
Correct. Little League is coming forth.
Also, question, I guess this would be more for Chris Byrne. Can I go back on one public comment and ask a question?
Why don't we wait until we're done with public comment?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Zach Bohr, and I participated in the American Legion Baseball League. I also participate in hockey, GTHA. And last year there was a situation that took place where I wasn't quite comfortable, even sleeping that night. And so I just wanted to say that I think this is a great opportunity for the county to take over the baseball. And that's all.
Thank you.
That's my son. Hey, I gotta get my composure. I'm Jocelyn Bohr. I'm a Grand Traverse County citizen, and that's my son, who was really affected by last year. The one night in particular, he went to bed with a baseball bat because he was so afraid. He has also been by my side through a lot of it, where I have, I'm actually one of the parents that stepped in. There were 4 of us that stepped in to take over the program last year. And he's been by my side, knowing some of it and keeping a lot of it from him. He is seriously considering not playing baseball this year if the Legion does take it over, or continues with it, because he doesn't want what happened last year to happen again. The other thing that I would like to say is when Mr. Greiner comes up here to share that information with you, and him being the one man in charge scares me as a county citizen, because I went to him with an attorney and spoke to him on several incidences that took place. And his answer to me was, I would never let my wife or my daughter be treated like that. And the following day, his answer to me was, we're getting rid of you. So as a commission, I ask you to please think twice in giving Mr. Greiner that control.
My name is Gary Lafka, Grand Traverse County citizen. I've been involved with American Legion for 28 years. Back in 88, 89, and 90, myself and Dr. Steve Kozelko Sr. and Donald Byrne ran that baseball program. And we had 1 year there, we had a problem over scheduling a playoff game. Since that time until last year, I don't know where they're coming up with 2 or 3 years, we never had a problem. Incident they're talking about, I have the police report right here. It was filed from your county office by Mr. Chuck Lurchin at 1700. In that thing, it says he possibly cut the line to his ex-fiance's telephone. Mr. Butcher had taken some weapons down to the family cabin in Kenzie County 4 or 5 days before that, which is in here. He had no ammunition, and the night they informed that all these people should feel threatened for their life, the only guy that's mentioned in here is Mr. Chuck Lurchin that filed this report. And in that report, Mr. Lurchin talked to several people, he said he felt that Mr. Butcher needed some help, which he probably did, because they yanked the baseball program out from underneath him. He had taken the guns down there. He retired. His girlfriend left him. Larry Butcher is a very highly decorated Vietnam veteran of 5 Purple Hearts. Still has shrapnel in his body today. I read this report, and to me, the criminal code for this is insanity. That was come from your office. His job as a Veterans Affairs officer is to help people and veterans, not to file police reports against them. Anyway, at 10 o'clock that night, they never talked to Larry. There's not a thing in here that mentions anybody else on that baseball board. The case was closed. So if you'd like a copy of that report, I have it right here. It's free to read. The meeting last week, this little thing went out by Mr. Schwagert, which was on the board, and I was on that board also, but I didn't get invited to the meeting the night that Mr. Butcher was relieved from that position, as well as other meetings. And I called to Mr. Fleece was at a meeting one night, which there was a police officer inside the building and 2 police cars out in the parking lot. For what reason, I never got an answer. All I know is Todd Goki was at a store, which was on the board getting a bottle of water. Mr. Schwagert said, "You better not go up there, they're gonna arrest you." Todd said, "So be it." I asked at that meeting 2 or 3 times why the police were present. The officer present was Mrs. Boer's husband inside the building. I never got an answer till the meeting was over from Mr. Schwagert. Mr. Greiner and I were standing there, and he said, well, an email that Mr. Butcher sent out, Commissioner Max Bauer and Jason Jones felt threatened by it. I contacted Commissioner Max Bauer a couple days later. She said she has never had a word with Larry Butcher at all like that. So this is some of the things that we've had to put up with. We admit we had some spark knock, but I was on a committee. I didn't even know when some of these meetings were taking place. Some of them were 8:30 at night on 8:30 at night, some were Sundays. But in regards to the last meeting, this is a thing right from Mr. Schwagert. It says, to parents and players of the American Legion Baseball at the Civic Center, extremely important meeting, governmental center, etc., February 18th. This is our chance to take the program away from Mr. Butcher and his partners, who should not be in control of the program. Please come and support us. Well, my daughter graduated with Mr. Butcher, and she got her thing in there. This is the type of thing we've had to put up with. So it's not all the American Legion's fault. We were never informed by Mr. Lurchin, who was a 20-year member of the American Legion. He never came before the E-Board or to a regular meeting and asked for help in that baseball program. Never once. He's never once been to a meeting since then. So I put a lot of years in the American Legion. I serve on the state board for the 9th District. We have a whole bunch of stuff here. It's not all the Legion's fault. We run this program. It was started in 1948 by volunteers of the American Legion that built the first baseball diamond there. The dugouts you see there, war paid for, and by Mr. Todd Goki, who was a builder with his labor. No cost to the county. The last thing I might say is, if you take this baseball program over, that's up to you folks. But you must remember, YMCA has a program, Pop Warner football program, all these other ones. We were asked to get out from under your liability policy last summer, which we did. Now, if these programs look at us, the baseball program you're going to run, they may say, well, why are we paying to lease these fields to run our program when they took the ball program over? Why don't they take them all over? Then you don't have an income for them fields up there. You're going to have it all eventually. It's up to you folks. I appreciate your time, but anybody wants a copy of some of these police reports, I don't know if they figure we're not smart enough to go down and file under Freedom of Information Act to get them. I don't know. But one thing I can say, Mr. Schwagert, Mr. Chuck Lurchin, Mrs. Moore, and Mr. Whitcup were in charge of that program more than American Legion was last summer. They took it away from Mr. Butcher in May, starting. Thank you for your time. It's up to you folks. Thank you.
So, excuse me, are you on the board for the American Legion
I
then?
was, yes, on the county-appointed board, which was mainly done by Mr. Butcher and Ross Childs, and I believe 1994, for the purpose of bringing a lot of these little groups in under the county's liability program, which we were informed of last year they wanted to get rid of, so we did that.
And are you referring to an email that we got where there were some odd statements? I barely remember that.
I never seen the email, so I couldn't tell you.
I'm not a stalker kind of a thing. Do you remember that?
Well, that,
Was that the email that we're talking about? Is this individual, and I don't care who it is, but I thought that the email was a little bizarre. Is this individual going to be involved with running this program from here out?
Commissioner, no, he will not.
Nope.
how many years did he run that program?
16 or 17 years.
17 years,
No
I believe,
problem
is the
till
correct
last year.
figure. And there was, like Mr. Lofka saying, there was a lot of innuendos and allegations made last year. And I've lived within 2 city blocks of him for years and years. And I know the whole Butcher family. And Larry, as a Vietnam veteran, last year did have some problems, and like Mr. Lofka says, there was some underhanded stuff going on. And I think they've removed Mr. Butcher now, and Mr. Ritter,
Mr. Greiner.
or Greiner, is in the charge. And to keep bringing up and saying there was problems from 2 to 3 years, I did attend that meeting that Mr. Lofka talked about. I was invited up there, and I was just there to observe as a citizen. Wasn't there as a county commissioner. And I really got my eyes open when I drove into the facility on Lafreniere Road, and there sat 3 cop cars, 1 city and 2 county. And I thought, geez, we must have a desperado in the neighborhood here. Well, it was just a bunch of baseless information that had been phoned into the police departments and the sheriff's department. And I myself went out and talked to a couple of the officers and said, there's no need for you to be here. If we need you, we'll call you. And that meeting was very orderly, very peaceful. There wasn't any problems at all. But
No, I also checked with my nephew, who's a captain on the sheriff patrol. He said all they were called for is assist the city police. I thought the city police were a little bit out of their jurisdiction up there, but that's...
well, they are. That's why I
know.
questioned it.
Anyway, do I have any more questions? If you'd like to see the police report, I have it right here. Public record. All the stuff.
Thank you. Anybody else? No. I do have a request from the clerk that everybody who did speak, she wants to sign in sheet, so she can get your name right. Okay,
Back to me?
we'll start. Oh, here comes Jason.
Commissioners, Jason Jones, Parks and Recreation Director. I feel obligated to come here to speak with you because at our Parks and Recreation Commission last week, the Parks and Recreation Commission voted to have the county run this baseball program. I'm not sitting in this chair to tell you what the past problems have been and whose fault they are, whose fault they're not. But what I'm here to tell you is there's an established need for a professionally run baseball program in this community. And the American Legion VVA American Legion and the VVA have done a great job in creating a two-generation legacy of baseball happening at our Civic Center. But it's obvious that there is a need for this organization to be run by certified individuals who know how to run youth athletic leagues. There are a lot of liability issues that need to be looked at with any youth baseball program, including background checks, coach training, proper equipment being utilized or being provided to the players. And that's something that this board and the Parks and Recreation Commission have never given us the opportunity to do. I've run programs like this in the past. This is one of the things that I was hired to do, is to be your Parks and Recreation Director. I was hired as your Deputy Director, and I hope you guys gave me this position, I hope Dennis gave me this position because of my abilities. In order for our Parks and Recreation Department to be sustainable into the future, we have to change our philosophy. We can't do business the way we always have. Commissioner Max Bauer states that all the time. We can't do things the way we always have. Well, are we a Parks Department or are we a Parks and Recreation Department? Right now, we're a Parks Department that runs the swimming pool. This is an opportunity for us to get into recreation and do it in a professional manner and create the community that needs to be created at the Civic Center in the summer by offering a baseball program. We have the opportunity to do this, and this is an opportunity that if we give it up now, we may not have this opportunity for several years. We have been approached by Little League. They've asked us to run their program before. Parents that are asked that want their kids in ball programs and recreational programs expect more from the folks running those programs. On a statewide basis and on a national basis, communities run Parks and Recreation programs for that very reason. We should be impartial as far as the philosophies of the leagues. You know, we've had this issue with the T-Bays North Star issue. It's a philosophical issue. The county, we're the ones that should have, that should be objective and not take a side. In talking revenues, I provided each of you a budget, a 2-year budget for this baseball program. In my numbers, I'm confident in these numbers that the first year with the initial capital investment for baseball equipment for each of the individual teams, including batting or baseball bats, full protective catcher's gear, batting helmets, baseballs, equipment bags, proper coach training, proper background checks for coaches, uniforms, that we could make a profit the first year of $7,800. This includes a $19,000 investment just in equipment. Year 2, we could see a profit of $18,590 because we're not going to have the capital cost of purchasing all brand new equipment, but we will budget for replacement of broken equipment. We will budget for replacement of worn equipment. And in that second year, we could see a profit of $18,590. For our baseball program that we've had for the past several years, we've seen a revenue come in of approximately $10,000. So I'm telling you, with this program, in the second year, by taking out those capital improvements, we can make an additional $8,000 in revenues. We're talking about looking at revenues more so than expenditures. This is one of the ways we can do it. I have this information in front of you with these first 2-year budgets. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me.
Oh, I have a question. You mentioned certification a couple times. How does the certification play into soccer, hockey, and all of those things?
My certification as a certified youth sports administrator provides expertise in working with working with volunteers to run programs, ensuring that the proper type, anybody can do a background check, but ensuring that the proper type of background check is done, ensuring that the proper liability insurance is in place, minimizing the risk associated with each of these programs, ensuring that coaches have the proper training to teach kids, and endorsing sportsmanship and endorsing other positive qualities that kids can gain from a youth sports program. As stated at our Parks and Recreation Commission meeting last week, this would be a everyone plays program. It wouldn't be a highly competitive program. There's already a program offered like that in our community. On top of being a certified youth sports administrator, with that, I have affiliation with the National Alliance for Youth Sports that provides a variety of different resources and toolboxes to help provide resources and ensure that our youth sports programs are run properly in this community. In addition to being a certified youth sports administrator, I'm also a certified parks and recreation professional, which means I have a certification in delivering optimal parks and recreation opportunities for communities. And that's anything from field maintenance and what type of turf is on the fields, to background checks, to writing grants for parklands.
But my question is, and I'm glad you explained that, but with respect, I think in particular, the youth sports certification, do the parent volunteers or the personnel, the limited personnel that GTHA has, that T-Base has, North Stars, do they have that certification? Do you know?
I can't speak as to whether or not they do.
Okay. Also, the personnel that you have in the budget here, what are you envisioning? I think, what do you have? Just a couple $1,000s?
I'm envisioning, let me find it. Personnel, I've got $6,000 budgeted, and that's worked into both of the budgets, year one and year two. And that's based on 13 weeks, 40 hours per week to operate this program. This would also, to let this commission know, this person, this may eliminate a seasonal position with the facilities management department. Facilities management hired one seasonal employee originally to dress fields for baseball and softball. And instead of that person being a facility management employee because they've evolved into mowing other facilities, that person would then become a seasonal employee with the Parks and Recreation Department and would spend part of their time dressing fields and spend part of their time administering the baseball program. You can see in the narrative that I provided, the first games don't start until the 14th week of the timeline that I've provided. Once those games get started, and with the help of the folks that have already volunteered to help with this program, who runs it, that employee would be afforded more time to dress the fields properly. So then they would be able to split more time, do more field maintenance, and because the responsibilities and the demands for the program, the administration of the program would be lessened to some degree because there would be less office work.
Is running a program like this distinctly different than running the pool program or the pool swimming lessons?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What are the top two major differences?
The top two major differences is changing the culture in the pool. We're not starting fresh with the pool program. We have to renovate and fix the past program. There isn't as high of an overhead cost associated with this program as there is in the pool. We always talk about revenues versus expenditures in the pool. The pool has a lot of large expenditures. Our baseball program doesn't have the overhead that a pool program does.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Do you have any more public comment?
Thank you, Jason.
Is it my turn now? Oh, I don't have any
No.
questions for Jason,
Is there
sorry.
You want to ask Jason a question?
No.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay,
Thank
thank you, Jason. Anybody else? Okay, back to the board.
Now? Okay. There are several reasons that I made this motion. One is the American Legion has run this program for longer than I've been alive, and they've run it successfully. All children get to play. It doesn't matter if they have no money, they can come and play. And that includes children from Leelanau County who are also in TCAP schools. I don't believe that because they had one bad year of management that suddenly warrants tossing a program away that has served this community for decades very well. They had one bad management year They've made changes, they've addressed that problem, and they're ready to move forward. I think we have budget considerations that we have to think about. You may recall that the director, Jason, came before us not too many months ago and wanted $86,000 for Twin Lakes, to complete Twin Lakes. The fund balance for Parks and Rec is down to $171,000, I think, last time I got the number from Dean. And minus $86,000 from that, where would our fund balance be? We have not budgeted for this. We've not prepared for this. American Legion is willing to continue doing this program. Another reason I'm in favor of American Legion continuing it this year is because we have a planning session tomorrow. And we as a board need to decide whether or not we want to continue being landlords or whether or not we do indeed want to take a different approach, a different direction, and become runners of programs. You know, if we take, and as Russ Clark said, if we take baseball, okay, I hear that there's a scholarship program for children who can't afford to play baseball built into this budget. What about kids that can't afford to play soccer or hockey or swim? We have to take all of these things into consideration. Now, had we had more time as a Parks Commission, I think, to really evaluate whether or not we want to move in that direction for other programs as well as just this one, because there is Pop Warner football, there are many other programs out there. You know, if we'd been able to have more time for discussion, I might be more comfortable with this. But at this particular time, I really do believe that this is the best solution for this summer. And by the way, I wanted to note one other thing. When I take a look at the expenses, and I understand that this is just a projection and it's not, you know, completely, the numbers aren't concrete. I did do a little bit of checking on my own, just on background checks. Under expenditure here for background check, it says $40. Well, I contacted Georgia Durga. She uses background checks, 3 different types for Commission on Aging. Her FBI background check is $50. The Sheriff's Department background check is much more economical, only $5. And I did not get a hold of anybody at the state police to find out what they charge her for their background check. But, you know, I have way too many questions. We've got a successful program that has run for decades. One bad management year does not, to me, warrant eliminating a successful program.
Chris, what was the vote on the Parks and Rec?
5-3.
Is there a reason you didn't tell us about that at the start?
I'm sorry, I thought it was in here somewhere. I thought I read it, and I apologize if I didn't mention that. But no, there was no reason. I may have been mixing my books here, but my paperwork.
First of all, in all fairness to, number one, the staff that came forward here today, and the families, I think first, given that some families and children were offended last year, I think they deserve an apology from the American Legion, and I think they deserve an apology from Grand Traverse County. And if we have not given that to you, I will give that to you tonight. And I appreciate the time and courage that, you know, you families came and spoke about the program. And, you know, I really feel for those families and children that were offended. I think that I'm not really here to fault the Parks and Rec Commission and those members that felt strongly about this opinion, and that, you know, your efforts and your time that you put on the board does not go unnoticed. And we really appreciate your recommendation. That's what we have you there for. I think we really have a balancing act that we have to deal with up here tonight, and that is, you know, we have a very successful program in the past with American Legion. We respect them for everything that they've done to the for the community. As Commissioner Maxbauer indicated, you know, they had a bad year last year, and things could have been handled a lot differently. I think we're in a situation right now where going into the 1st of March, time is a problem in my mind in terms of a major shift going into trying to drop one program and educate on another and getting up to speed and buying equipment and getting people on staff. I just don't have a comfort level that if we're going to change our philosophy, that we have the adequate enough time to do it. I think that American Legion deserves an opportunity to show that they can run this program for the 2010 year. They've made corrective action. I think that would give us time to evaluate how well they do. And meanwhile, I think it would be appropriate as one way of getting down and discussing this thing. Sure, we have our strategic planning meeting tomorrow, and we'll throw it on the board and have a discussion on it. But, you know, if we're looking at a major shift in policy from a cooperative effort on behalf of the county and community groups to running everything, I think that it's probably appropriate for us to, at some point in time, to have a joint meeting with the Parks and Rec Department and talk about the pluses and minuses from our perspective and from your perspective, and to get a long-range game plan. And if we do have questions about this program and other programs that you think possibly could be coming our way in the near future, then we got to have a game plan about it, and that might be a couple things. I mean, you know, as they occur, we might go out for example, a request for proposals, have our community people put a proposal together, and have the county put it together, and somebody else might step up and come it together. So, you know, I think everything has merit that was talked about tonight, but I do agree with everything that was said by Commissioner Maxbauer. Given the new information that we have received tonight regarding the American Legion and their commitment and to bring a program director on board, I think for at least the 2010 season, we should allow them to do that, but I don't think we should disregard the recommendation. I think we should evaluate it during the 2010 year, possibly going out for proposals, and we got to have really a philosophy discussion between Parks and Rec and the county board about what direction we really want to go in. And I don't think we should be making that tonight.
Well, you know, this is kind of difficult for me because everyone in this room's heard me talk over and over and praise the partnerships that Grand Traverse County has had with ICE and American Legion and YMCA, and I can't even think of all the rest of them, T-Bays, over the years, and the youth opportunities that have been given there. You know, I sit here and I think it's been 15 years since Denny and I coached together at the Civic Center. It's been a long time, you know, but a lot of kids have come through these programs along the way too. But I have a fundamental problem in that somewhere along the way here in the last couple months, I was appointed to a adjunct committee which is supposed to meet with the Parks and Recreation Board to talk about what the county board's role is in recreation in this community. Because the resolution that's in place says recreational opportunities will be governed by the County Parks and Recreation Board. And unless somewhere along the way that I'm not aware of, that resolution has been changed, we shouldn't even be having this discussion. The Parks and Recreation Board already made a decision to operate this program. Now, you know, I'm not sure if I missed a meeting somewhere along the way here, and we've made that change, but the resolution that is currently in place sets the recreational planning for this community to be the responsibility of the Parks and Recreation Committee. They voted to take over this baseball program. I'm also concerned that this county board's representative to that board did not come back here and explain to us what the Parks and Recreation Board said. Now, I'm repeatedly reminded that when we sit as a county board representative on these committees, it's important for us to represent the county board's philosophy to those committees. And I think it's also in turn that when the Parks and Recreation Committee made that decision, and when the presentation was made back to this board's representative of that commission should have made us fully aware that the Parks and Recreation Committee had voted to take over the baseball program. And that, I am offended by the fact that that didn't happen. And I have to tell you, it's a very difficult decision, but I will not be supporting this motion in that, the first thing, and Mark Greiner is a friend of mine, and we've known each other all our lives. But the fact is, he's admitting in his letter that the first thing they need to do is go out and hire a recreational professional to help run this program. We have one on staff. We don't have to go find one. We have one. Do we need some additional help? Are we going to have to talk about the budget and those kind of things? Absolutely. And that's something that I'm sure Jason and Dennis is going to have to talk about. But the fact is, I don't believe that they are prepared to run this program. First thing they have to do is go hire staff. We have that staff in place. We can hit the ground running and have a program in place when the snow goes off. And, I believe the Parks and Recreation Committee voted to take over this program. I'm not saying it's a permanent thing. I think it'll get us through 2010. Sign up for this program should be starting, by the 1st of April, you better have all your kids signed up to play, because that's just the way it has to be. And if we operate it in 2010, we will have some evaluation of whether or not it's something we want to continue to do. If we do not want to continue to do it in 2011, we put an RFP out and see what organizations are interested in bidding it. I just think that's the way we have to do it. The Parks and Recreation Committee's recommendation is that we operate this program in 2010, and that's the way I will be voting.
I'm inclined to agree with Sonny. We have a Park Recreation Board. They make a recommendation, and I will follow it. Furthermore, we have a director. I trust his professionalism, I trust his staff, and I trust their ability to pull this off. I also see in here a very clear vision of how this program is going to be run. I see plans and outlines and concrete evaluation of a baseball program and how it's going to work. And I'm confident that it can be done, and I'm confident that Jason is the guy that can handle it.
I did let everyone know at the Ways and Means Committee meeting that this was coming. And I gave everyone my impression at that meeting. If we move the baseball program from American Legion to the Parks Department, what other work that's not going to be done, how is it going to be done? We have a master plan that expired in 2008. We need a 5-year recreation plan filed by April 1st with the Michigan DNR in order to qualify for funding there. We are going to have to adjust our budget. So if that's the board's wish to adjust our budget, then that's fine. But I really, I think we should have a philosophy discussion before we take this move.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we have an organization, they're veterans, American Legion, and the way I learned arithmetic, it looks to me like they ran a successful program for at least 61 years out of 62. And I guess I don't understand, I didn't attend the meeting, but I don't understand how the Parks and Rec Board could arbitrarily just decide on, they're an appointed board. We have to answer to the constituents. How could the Parks and Rec Board, without any budgeted personnel, vote to take over something that's been in existence 62 years when we have the American Legion volunteering to run it? They're even volunteering to hire somebody to make sure it works a lot smoother. And last year, I think, was the only year they had some hiccups, and it was due to one individual. I can't support the Parks and Rec taking over on such short notice. The American Legion letter is bad enough. It's dated February 22nd. The Parks and Recs from Jason is even worse. It's today. And I saw it when I walked in tonight. Pretty hard to read, listen to a meeting, and comprehend. I think if the Parks and Rec Board wants to entertain the thought of taking over any program, they need to do it on a more timely basis. And I also would be really concerned about the cost implications. And I can foresee a lot of other programs. You talk about the hiccup the American Legion had last year. What about T-Bays?
Oh, yeah.
Holy Jesus, I thought, you talk about needing cops, we could have needed cops up here. You know, they really got out of hand. And so I think, and I understand Jason's professionalism and so forth, and I think he really does the county a swell job. But I think this is ill-timed, and I think maybe next year, bring it to the board, budget it in a timely fashion. I'm not saying that I would even support it then, particularly based on if it ran smoothly this year, which I'm sure it will. You got a guy like Mark Greiner willing to step up to the plate and say, here I am, and I'll take full responsibility. He apparently has the American Legion's backing on this. I think I'm gonna, I don't think, I will vote to allow the American Legion to continue for their 63rd year. And I think when I get asked out in the community why I voted that way, I can really explain my vote. I couldn't explain my vote if we threw somebody out with that much experience. Goodbye.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
From the Parks Board, because I don't feel our representative is speaking to what he as a board.
We've already heard from him.
I did have an additional question for her.
Go ahead.
Do you want to come up? I had an additional question for you. You're interested in the Parks and Rec Commission taking over scheduling all of the youth and all of the games, correct?
At this time for baseball.
At this time for baseball. You haven't been satisfied with the scheduling and the undertaking of the swim lessons, correct?
With
the Parks and Rec staff.
Currently now?
In the past.
In the past, no, we haven't had an aquatics professional doing it. Now that we have brought on a professional aquatics person. Aquatics and youth sports recreation are kind of separate. Aquatics is kind of a unique entity versus baseball or soccer or hockey.
Okay.
Can I make any comments in regards to the Parks and Recreation Board?
Go ahead.
Larry, I just wanted to share with you that the Parks and Rec Board did not make any hasty decisions. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of forethought in this. I also don't feel that we as a Parks Board are stripping away American Legion. Mark Greiner came to us and said, quote, "It will not break my heart if Grand Traverse County takes over baseball." He sat in this seat and told us that they have difficulty because he has a full-time job and cannot commit to it. The comments like that is what really concerned me as a board member. And when I think about the staff that they have available to run the baseball program, and that we were told it won't break my heart, it's difficult for us, we've had struggles, we've been struggling for a long time, and we've just been getting by. We are a recreation department. That is what we do. That is why you have recreational professionals that are hired for a recreation department. We have things in place. We have services that we you know, we have our internet registration service. We have a secretary that is answering phones 8 hours a day. We have those things in place.
Okay, so when the Parks and Rec Department has talked about basically what would be a slippery slope to a change in philosophy, I mean, assuming that this would be a domino effect, did you talk at all about the budget?
We did. We talked about budget. And if you look in your packet of information that Jason Jones provided, and if you look at the revenue, what the thing that is not being discussed tonight is when if you, let's say we had 500 children pay for youth baseball, and I can't remember the fee that Jason put on there off the top of my head, but we talked about, I think it was $60 to play youth baseball, which is a very reasonable rate. For me to sign my children up for swim lessons right now, it's $75 for 3 weeks, which is, or maybe it's 4 weeks. It's 2 lessons a week for 8 weeks. It's $75. An entire summer of baseball for $60 is a great value. At $60 times 500 kids, I can't do the math in my head, unfortunately, that quickly, but the parks, or the county would see a revenue from that. I have no idea in the past what the financial records are from American Legion, and anybody that I've asked has never seen any financial records. That was another concern, is that where, you know, where's that money going?
And so did you talk at all about the impact on the budget if you were to end up taking over several different sporting activities?
We didn't talk about several different because the only one that we're discussing right now is baseball. We're going one at a time. The foresight is that eventually the Parks and Recreation Department may need to, but we have an opportunity right now before us. It's very time sensitive that baseball, if we are going to run a youth baseball program, we would need to start now, get things going. And I had the same question that Sonny did. I addressed Chris Maxbauer 3 weeks ago and said, why does this need to go to the Board of Commissions? Why are we, as a Parks Department, asking the board for approval for something that we should be doing right within our board? And she said, you have to bring it to the commission. That's the way it goes. You have to get their permission to run a program. I said, we've never asked for permission to do an egg hunt at the pool or to do a, what do they call it, flick and float. Any of the programming that's going on in the pool, we're not coming to you for approval to do those things.
Okay, thanks for answering my questions.
Try it.
Bob, what about the current resolution?
The resolution establishing the Parks and Recreation Commission, which I think was around 1977, and I have reviewed it several times, it provides that all policy decisions have to come before this board. So all policy decisions that the Parks Board is making under the resolution that created the Parks Commission in the first place have to be approved by this board. Now, the term policy, that's a pretty broad term. When we talk about a matter of public policy in other contexts, you know, in my opinion, it would encompass this decision here, whether or not Parks runs the program or whether it would be the American Legion. So,
in any event, it would come before you anyway because it's going to require staffing changes and other things that only you have the authority to do.
yeah, all budget allocations, of course, to the Parks Commission have to come from this board, and so even if Parks had the authority to make that decision on their own, they rely upon you for any money to supply that program. So.
Now, I feel like I'm operating a little bit in the dark here because I don't have all of the details of what the problems were, and I don't want to necessarily get into all of them. Like you mentioned, you've shared some with your son and not others. Well, I feel like I have about this much knowledge of them. But what I want to be sure of is if the American Legion does continue to operate the program, that were these problems centered on one individual without getting into that individual and their background?
Yes.
Were they solely centered on this individual? who you told me would not be involved with it anymore.
Yes. I can answer that, Beth, yes.
Okay. Did the parents agree with that, or this?
No, that's not true. That's not, it wasn't one individual.
Because last week, the comment was made that that individual would be part of the program because he is retired.
Every
and
week,
he would be helping.
their answer changes, and you can look back on the minutes to that.
The part that really bothers me, and I heard it several times tonight, is the income the Parks and Recs Department could make off of this program. That really bothers me, because as a representative of county taxpayers, we sure shouldn't be looking at making a profit, I don't think. We should be providing services at the most reasonable and best cost we can. And I submit to you, when we have an organization such as the American Legion that's run a program successfully for 62 years, just in one fell swoop to take it away is not right. And I think if the Park and Rec wants to get into something like this, they need to, number one, budget it. They think they need to look into it, like several of the commissioners expressed tonight. There's going to be a lot of other Me Too's behind it. It gets to be an expensive endeavor. My sincere hope for the Park and Rec's board and staff, if they're that concerned about the American Legion being successful, they would volunteer their time to help that organization this year. And you know what? Look at the service they gave to this country. You know, shake your heads no, but look at the service in the past. You got one individual, like he spoke of earlier tonight, 5 Purple Hearts. Some of them guys really went through some awful stuff. I think it's the least we can do. I think it's the least that you could do.
Can Mr. Greiner answer my question quickly?
Would you repeat the question?
I think you said earlier that this individual would not be involved, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And no problem with stepping away. Since the meeting last week, we've had meetings too. If I may answer one question. The Parks and Recreation Board never asked for a financial report from that football program. I get one at the end of every year that I have to submit to the State of Michigan Department of American Legion. That goes on to the national office on the money that brought in, the kids. I can tell you right now, none of that money goes to the American Legion folks. It stays with the baseball program.
Could you tell us what the fund balance in that program is?
I don't have a figure right now, sir, but I'd say maybe $10,000. It stays about there all the way through. Of course, if you take it, you don't have to rent the fields like we do. It'll balance it out.
But if you have an income, would that offset some of your deficit? Which I saw in the budget last week. It's not an income, it just offsets another deficit within the county.
Anybody have anything else?
Call the motion.
Let's read the motion. I forgot what it was.
Way back here.
Oh, it's almost like remembering all the words of Exodus.
Motion was made by Max Bauer and seconded by Wheelock to enter into an agreement with the American Legion Post 35 for the junior baseball program for 2010.
By roll call vote.
That's fine. Can I ask a question of the motion maker?
Yeah, go ahead.
Chris, you heard the motion that allow them to go through 2010 year, given the time constraints and those kinds of things. Would you feel comfortable in your motion that we're not necessarily denying the conceptual concept of discussing further?
Oh, no, I'm not.
The option of, a trend that we may be looking at.
Absolutely not,
One
no.
has nothing to do with the other.
All right. Well, it sort of does.
Well,
It sort of does. Because, I don't want to I don't want to inadvertently send a message to Parks and Rec that, we're totally shooting down what they recommended in terms of what they view as the, near future or the ongoing future. We're just addressing 010, and we can come back and have a philosophical discussion with them or the board on, what kind of direction we want to go in.
My concern is that that motion that was made is not the motion that the Parks and Rec Board made at our meeting.
Doesn't matter. It's
Doesn't
not a
matter.
It's not a motion in front of them.
Doesn't matter.
All right.
By roll call vote.
Commissioner Fleece,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Richardson,
No.
Stepka,
No.
Friend,
No.
Inman,
Yes.
Hooper,
No.
Wheelock,
No.
Thomas,
What's the score now?
5-3, or 3 yes, 5 no.
So you don't count.
Doesn't matter. I do want to say that I'm in favor of keeping of the motion. However, I think if we had more of a plan on what we were going to do, then I'd probably be in favor of going the other way, but I'm going to vote yes on this.
Vote yes or
Motion
vote
failed.
no?
Mr. Commissioner, or
You still
Chairman,
won. lost.
I would move that we allow the Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation Board to take over the Little League program for 2010. Support.
How did that last,
Discussion?
how did that last vote come down?
4 yes, 5 no.
Oh, okay.
It went away.
I'm sorry, Hooper made the motion and Wheelock?
Yeah, we left.
Hooper made the motion, I seconded to authorize Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation to develop a youth baseball program for 2010.
That worked.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
It's kind of late.
Hope
been a
this
long
motion
day.
don't take as long as the last one. Discussion?
This is just for the 2010 season, correct?
That's what I miss.
Would you take input from the floor?
You don't have anything to do with Little League, do you?
Not right now.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mark Reiner again, I spoke earlier. What I would say is, in light of your first motion, American Legion suddenly has a surplus of baseball equipment they'd like to make you a good deal on. Seriously, and I understand you have some pretty unique pieces of equipment sitting out on Keystone Road. You'd be willing to make a bargain here?
Something we could discuss.
You'll have to get with administration tomorrow.
Okay, that's something we'd really be interested in. We think maybe we could use some of the stuff you might have there to raise some funds to continue our activities at the post for veterans. Thank you.
Discussion on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Max Bauer,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Stepka,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Hooper,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Fleece,
No.
Thomas,
Yes.
passed.
Okay. Now, we're done with everything?
Second public comment.
Gee, it's
Not quite. You got
public comment.
Could I address your board one more time very quickly?
the same subject?
Thank you. Mark Render. The only thing I will ask you, the same thing I asked the Parks and Recreation Commission the other night is, if you continue forward with the baseball program, which you intend to do, please consider several things. Every child that wants to play has the opportunity to play, first and foremost. Secondly, that you have some sort of a mechanism in place to evaluate the effectiveness of the program and how it continues, so you don't get into the problems that we got into, because that was probably one of our biggest issues, that we just let it go and it should have been evaluated. Third, the issue of the scholarships for out-of-county players, if it comes up, make sure that we're comfortable in addressing that. And fourth, be comfortable in managing the program to the standards that try and follow what the American Legion has stood for in this area for 62 years. Those fields were built by the American Legion members. A lot of the improvements were made there, all that stuff. I would hope maybe somewhere along the line, you might ask your staff to see if something could be put in place to recognize the effort of all those people for all those years for basically little or nothing from these, you people here. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Dick, if I could, just one quick thing, and I should have mentioned it earlier. If you remember last week when we talked about natural gas prices with Danny
yeah.
Brown, the price last Tuesday was .699. The call at 3:30 this afternoon is .624. So it's dropped a nickel in less than a week. So we're still waiting. We're still waiting. Another week yet.
Jeez.
Another week.
We have us on pins and needles.
Let's see.
Another week.
I was gonna bring something up, but it's history now.
Motion to adjourn.
No, you got your calendars.
Looks good.
You have to accept the motion to adjourn once it's done.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thanks. Strategic planning tomorrow at noon. Strategic planning tomorrow at noon.
And thank you for letting us know when daylight savings time makes it switch.
Oh, yeah.
When is that?
Because, I mean, my wife and I have been having this discussion for
That
about
was
a
the-
week, you
that
know.
was
When
the
is it
step that they
exactly?
When is it?
Now, that meeting finally is the 23rd of March at Twin Lakes.
Yes, I believe that's it.
What time is that, noon?
Is it the 23rd of March?
Well, that's the last I heard.
Yeah.
What meeting, what meeting?
I'll verify that for you
Twin
tomorrow.
Lakes.
I'm not sure, Commissioner.
Oh.
It's not on this calendar.
Finally.
I know it's not on the calendar, but
Yeah, I think you're right, but I can't, I would like to
Is it
check and
noon?
verify. Pardon?
noon or 9 or,
No, it was in the morning, I think it was at 9.
I'd have to check my calendar.
I'll tell you what it is.
well, I got the day. That's all I got. Anybody got any problems with any of these meetings?
Well, if that's that meeting, that interferes with the finance committee, so
Dennis, that
if it
meeting,
is at 9 o'clock in the morning,
It's not.
I've got this meeting in the 22nd, noon to 3 at Twin Lakes.
or noon.
20 what?
Second.
22nd.
That's what I have too.
Monday
Noon
the
at Twin
22nd,
Lakes.
noon to 3.
Right after.
No,
right
that's
after the
not
Board
what
of Public
Katie
Works.
told me the other day.
No, that's what's on the calendar. I think that's what it is, Dick.
makes
22nd,
sense.
Monday, noon, at Twin Lakes. John Axel.
I will be gone from March 19th until April 6th.
A well-deserved vacation.
Good.
Florida.
What'd you say, Dick?
I had my reservations all made to go south. I had to cancel because there wasn't any airport in Buckley to land in. Good night. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Support.
Had enough for one day.
One in Thompsonville, though.
Oh, you have a huge day.
Sure we could get
Meetings with the township and
That had been like draining.
Board of Public Works
I really like
Talking to a wall.
townships.
Mark.
They want to reduce their cost.